Right. Well, before moving ahead, I would like to take this opportunity to mention some of our esteemed partners at GBS. This session has been co-powered by Google, co-powered by Bennett University, the Times Group, our industry partners, the celebration partner, that's Teachers Packaged Drinking Water, Smart Logistics partner, FedEx, India Innovation partner, Process, Commercial and Investment Bank partner, JP Morgan, Energy partner, Inox GFL Group.
In fact, ladies and gentlemen, our technology AI partner is New Dream Network. ESG partner is SR Group. Luxury partner, Mercedes-Benz. Sustainable construction partner, Boots. Industry partner, Transworld. And then, Aisha, there's a whole host of associate partners as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've got Ace Insurance Brokers, Nisus Finance, Accenture, MV Group, Luminous, Raven Infra Project, National Stock Exchange, that's the NSE, Octagon International, WeWork India, Quick Smart Wash, Radio Mirchi in Ghana, and of course our official outdoor media partner, Times U.
Absolutely, Aisha. And we thank all our partners for their invaluable support in helping us put together this summit. And over the course of the summit, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, we'll be engaging in thought-provoking sessions, insightful keynotes, and dynamic panels that will feature industry leaders, policy makers, and visionaries.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started then for a very enlightening day ahead. And before that, I'd like to just make a mention. I know Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw was supposed to be here, but he couldn't make it because of the unfortunate tragedy in New Delhi yesterday. But let's switch gears and talk about how India is rapidly emerging as a global leader in pickleball. We are fueled by growing interest and investment in the sport with increasing participation, infrastructure development, international success. India is now positioning itself as a very key player.
Absolutely, Aisha, and the country's commitment to nurturing talent and hosting events is what is driving its prominence on the world stage as well, especially as far as this sector is concerned. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our panelists for this very first session of the summit. We have Pranav Kohli, the CEO and founder of PWR, Aditya Khanna, the co-founder of PWR, Rohit Gopakumar, the CEO of Times Entertainment Vertical, WWM Entertainment TV, and digital network, the Times Group. And the session will be moderated by Mihir Bhatt, the Managing Editor and Chief Business Officer of the Times Network. May I please request Mihir to walk up on the stage along with the panelists.
So like Aisha said, we'll switch gears and we'll talk about pickleball. India is definitely emerging as the pickleball giant globally. Pranav, I want to start with you. Pickleball has been around for more than 50 years. Why is it picking up now? I mean, I understand that during COVID it really grew, but even now, we are out of COVID. It remains the fastest growing racket sport in the world. In US, it has practically taken everybody by storm. And in India also, we have seen more than 160% growth in pickleball ecosystem annually. What is fueling this growth?
Yeah, I mean, one of the key things about pickleball is that it transcends gender, socioeconomic backgrounds, body type, and age. So anybody can play pickleball. So if you look at me, I'm today 160 kgs. When I started pickleball, I was 186. So somebody of my body type could get on a court, which again I can't do with any other sport. Any age bracket can play. 4 to 80. Anybody can play the sport. It's easy. Hand-eye coordination allows for that movement, and then also it's less intimidating for women. It's one of those sports where men and women can play together. So practically, my daughter, my wife, and my father and myself, we can all be on a court and enjoy a competitive game of pickleball. So it's very inclusive. Accessibility is a key factor. The cost of infrastructure is, it's not very high. It's fractional. In one tennis court, for example, you can fit 4 pickleball courts from a sizing perspective. And to create it is also not expensive. So I think all of these factors collectively are, fueling the growth, but also consumer behavior across the globe is changing as well, specifically when it comes to sports. So when it comes to sports, a lot of participation is happening in new age sports. And you see that with not just pickleball, but also paddle. And what has happened is across the globe, everybody is, during COVID, looked for a new hobby category. And that's why, Peloton grew from a cycling perspective. Nobody knew indoor cycling could be so big, right? And pickleball is one of those sports which got the fancy of a lot of people because of its inclusive nature. And that's how the sport is grown.
Right. Aditya, my next question is for you. You have been a professional tennis player. You are also actively involved in pickleball and developing the pickleball ecosystem in India. You are driving the formal structure of pickleball ecosystem between you and Pranav, both of you. This transition from tennis to pickleball, we have seen it happening in US as well, where pickleball is expected to overtake tennis in next 5 years. What is your view about pickleball growth in India?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The transition from tennis to pickleball is happening in India a lot as well, because you see a lot of tennis courts in US have got converted into pickleball courts. Primarily, there are many factors why this is happening. One, as club owners, a lot of the club owners are making more money out of one tennis court, can be converted into 4 pickleball courts. So the economies of scale is much better in terms of the return on investment on pickleball. And 16 players, pickleball is primarily played in doubles. So there are 16 players playing on the sides of a tennis court. As Pranav also mentioned, the easiness of playing the sport, the inclusivity of the sport in terms of all ages, in terms of the body dynamics as well, is having a huge factor in driving that growth. And you see in the last 2 years, the kind of growth pickleball has seen in India is totally phenomenal. There are new courts coming up, older tennis courts getting converted into pickleball courts, and every institution or every club which has sporting facility now is making pickleball courts. And we just conducted a few events. We conducted the Nationals, and we conducted an event in the DLTA where we converted 7 tennis courts into 28 pickleball courts. And on 28 pickleball courts, over a period of 3 days, we had more than 2,000 participants, which is a huge number, which probably tennis has never seen on a Nationals or in a 3-day event. And more than 3,000 matches happened on those courts, which is a huge factor. So it's a great community sport, which is driving that factor as well. And the Nationals, which was held at the BU, at the Bennett University, on 16 pickleball courts, we had participation from more than 20 states, and from juniors of under 12, boys, girls, from under 12 to under 14, to age ranging up to 60 plus professional tennis, professional pickleball players, men's, women's, mixed doubles. So you see that participation is so huge because of the age bracket which it is following, and the easiness of playing the sport. So I feel pickleball will probably be the most actively played sport in the country after cricket, I think, in the next couple of years to come.
Right. I'll take a cue from that. Rohit, you have decades of experience in dealing with brands, marketing, brand positioning. Pickleball, like Addy also mentioned, it's actually the next big thing after cricket. How are brands looking at this sport? Because I've seen, I keep watching on Insta also, so many celebs and corporates are actually warming up to the idea. So what is your experience?
Okay, so let me start this way. What I've seen from a media perspective, because when I'm talking about, when I was in Star TV, when I'm talking about IPL when it launched, whichever way, I feel disruption is innovation. Okay, and people who are able to get there in terms of ahead of time are the ones who are reaping the benefits right now. Like people, if you look at IPL today, if somebody wants to get into IPL final, getting an ad spot, even, it's too high compared to what it was when it started. Actually year on year, the value chain is going on increasing. Now, let me give you some examples, which then I will tell you why the brands should be looking at this as an opportunity. If you look at IBM wanting to be with tennis as a sport, they have no connect. But today when you think of Wimbledon, IBM is going to be there as part of a sponsor. Or Rolex, for example. Every sport has time limit, right? Be it football, be it cricket, be anything. But Rolex understood how to, use the time, clock at the tennis to ensure that the branding is elevated, right? So it's all about identifying what is happening. See, honestly, I really cannot tell any brand today that this is the number going to be tomorrow. But I can tell this much because of what Adi and Pranav were talking, the value of, I think accessibility of the sport, the number of people who have started playing this sport, right? I can give you examples of local tournament which is happening. My colleagues, 9th standard kids did a pickleball event. And there were a lot of local brands who used that opportunity to be at that venue, right? So when people like us, I'm talking about like Times Group being in partnership with Pranav and Adi, when we get into something like this kind of a sport, we know why we are getting into it because I think the narrative is very clear. We feel this is going to be the next big sporting event which will happen for us. Because right now we talk about, say, X number of teams, but we believe it's going to be like, I think it'll be 25 teams plus in the next couple of years, which we feel is going to happen, all because of popularity. Two, the brands, when they come in now, the cost of entry would be low, and they can actually build a narrative. Third, this is one of the sports which I think is not segregated as male-female sport, right? So here it's ubiquitous. I think different brands can come in, and right now if they get into this kind of a space, they can actually break clutter. You know, a beauty brand can come and take, pickleball sponsorships or team ownerships. The idea is inclusivity, as he said, and I think a lot of us are here from companies, brands. We want to invite them also to be part of it because I think it's a revolution of its kind, and that's what I feel from a brand perspective.
Right. So this is actually an opportunity for brands to associate early with, let's say, a revolution or disruption, as you said. But Pranav, I want to ask you, US, which currently is the largest pickleball ecosystem globally, how the evolution has been, what are the valuations, how teams and team owners have benefited, because it is still growing at a very rapid pace, even in US. So what is your observation?
Yeah, Amit. Before I answer that question, I'll just add a couple of things to both
Sure.
these points. So just to Addy's point and what is happening with tennis and, within the tennis fraternity, as we speak, you've got Andre Agassi and Steffi Graf playing against Maria Sharapova and Andy Roddick in the US. And they're playing for a weekend for $1 million. So obviously there's a lot of interest within the ecosystem for pickleball in tennis players. Andy Roddick himself, commented on the fact that if tennis does not change, then there's going to be things, pickleball is going to take over. And then I think that's a very natural kind of a progression from a sport perspective. And I don't think they're competing against each other personally. I think they can coexist because tennis has a legacy. But there are a lot of tennis players today who are adopting pickleball. In fact, a lot of the top players across the globe are actually ex-tennis players who've come into the sport. And then coming to, what Rohit was mentioning, I just want to mention, a specific couple of anecdotes from the US, specifically when it comes to pickleball. So if you look at Skechers in the US, Skechers obviously did very well in that run-walk category, which was their, prime category. But then they launched Skechers Pickleball. And actually, that has been one of their most successful campaigns to associate. In fact, if you go to a Skechers store today in India, you have a dedicated section for pickleball. And if you look at, the advertisements they've done over the last 1 month, they've got full-page ads on pickleball coming out in national newspapers like Times of India. So I think the advantage of associating today is primarily on the fact that you can build categories around it. I know a sunscreen brand in the US, which is, because it's such a participative sport, that communities are built around it. The word of mouth is strong. So everybody who's playing would then go on the same. So from a brand perspective, you're actually associating with a community than a sport. And that community is very, very coherent, talkative, and it's, it's together, and that's how brands are being built even in the US. So that's from a brand perspective a great opportunity because a sunscreen brand, unknown outside, built a full brand out of pickleball and is now amongst the top sunscreen brands in the US. So I think that is a great opportunity. Now coming to the valuations and the team ownership kind of thing, when I got into sport, and I got into sport a little early, 2022, and you can imagine if that is early, so how new things have been. Major League Pickleball, which is the largest league in the US, actually had teams at $125,000. And I had a handshake deal with the owner and the founder of Major League Pickleball. And by the time I got to India in that 24, 48 hours, that handshake deal didn't exist anymore because the team was $1 million now. So then I got a consortium together and I said, okay, I'll buy $1 million team, and then by the time I got the consortium together, it was $3 million. From September 2022 to March 23, the teams that were sold were at $6 million. So that was the kind of growth that it had. Now, one of the teams that was bought at $6 million and was sold at $15 million in full. One of the teams today that is, that was bought at, I think, $125,000 when the first round of 3 teams happened, is today raising fractional ownership from a fan base at a $34.6 million valuation. And I think that's where, Times Group and PWR is going to lead the way. I think we are going to be the first ones to fractionalize ownership as well as we go forward, which is going to benefit the team owners quite a bit.
Right.
Yeah. So I think, fractional team ownership from a fan base perspective. So all of these things, when they come into play, we're looking at it very differently. Because it's such a participative sport, so you can think about fractional team ownership. You can think about those kind of valuations. And I think people who get into the sport a little bit early, they'll see that there's a hockey stick growth and valuation growth going forward.
Right. Rohit, I want to bring you in on this point. I was reading a very interesting comment in one of the articles published in international publication that pickleball is actually a rock concert of sorts with sports thrown in. Obviously now, Pranav mentioned about the Times Group and PWR coming together, and we are roughly a month away from first, I would say, proper, formal, full-blown Indian Pickleball League. That's going to happen in Bombay. So, yeah, your comments.
So, the good part is, as a media group, I think our play has been across platforms. And that's, I think, a big advantage. I'm talking about be it entertainment like Filmfare, Radio Mirchi, or any of those, to serious stuff like your Times Now and all that. So our play is so good that we understand how I can marry these two things together at one point, right? So our event is like 17th of March onwards. So the whole idea is to make it so interesting that it has to have the seriousness of sport, because obviously I think we are getting the world's best ranked players. So it's going to be a serious game, and it's not going to be like a very, it's not like a gully cricket right now. We may get into it later, but right now we're talking about trying to get the benchmark set right. So those players and the best of entertainment married together, I think we can, copy shamelessly from somebody, So we're copying that, and I think in that sense, we're going to make it arresting and interesting for audience, on ground, on air, online. And the beauty of this sport is because it's not so long, right, as a timeline. If you look at what's happening today, audience 15 to 35, their attention span is so small. And that's also a good thing for sport like ours, because it's just, I think, a 15, 20, 30 minutes kind of a game. So what we could do is we could actually take a lot of things from there onto a social media handle, Instagram posts, reels, and things like that. So that also could be a big opportunity for brands. Instead of just having a 3-hour game or a 6-hour game. That's what we feel.
It's WWE meets UFC.
Oh, yeah, right. But Eddie, if you can just, for the benefit of viewers and everybody, if you can just explain, how the pickleball ecosystem works. Who are the associations, like you have FIFA in soccer, or you have, let's say, ATP rankings in tennis, or you have ICC managing cricket globally. How is that ecosystem evolving for pickleball globally? And where is India in that?
So, first of all, leagues like this will help the Indian players a lot. I'd like to add to that, because what IPL did for Indian cricket is truly phenomenal. And that's what, the League of Times and PWR is going to do, is put India on the global map of pickleball as well. And, that's why the Indian players will, play these leagues, and, the grassroots leagues will start from this. And, they will get encouraged, because as leagues like this come, prize money increases, sponsorship opportunities increases, these Indian players become heroes for junior kids, and that's why the junior grassroots development starts. And so the governance structure is, of course, very important when leagues like this and the sponsorship things are coming in. So the way the Indian structure is working is there's a body called Indian Pickleball Association, which is working strongly with the Global Pickleball Federation. Global Pickleball Federation is the aligned with the US Pickleball Association, which is the rule-making body of pickleball in the world. And GPF has continental federations which with Europe, with Asia, with South America, with America as well. And they're following the International Olympic structure of getting the International Olympic recognition. And in India, we play a strong part because India's a pickleball giant as well. Like US, India is probably number 2 at this point in time. So from the Indian structure, we're getting the right governance structure right. We've aligned ourselves with the GPF and with the Asian Pickleball Association. GPF currently has about 60 or 65 countries already aligned with it. We are helping them form the Asian bodies as well. From the Asian perspective, we are choosing right partners who can develop these pickleball rightly in the Asian countries. So whether you take it as Hong Kong, we have involved the Hong Kong Tennis Association, which is great. We have the UAE Tennis Federation, which already does the Dubai Masters, and they're very well equipped in doing world-class events. Similarly, in Middle East and in Central Asia, like Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, also we have links with strong bodies as well. So that's why the whole global structure will become strong in developing pickleball. And in India, the way it is working is we are working strongly with the Indian Pickleball Association, which already has a body of work of multiple years of doing nationals and grassroots development with multiple academies for junior development. Just I mentioned before, the 4th nationals took place where more than 2,000 people were playing from juniors to adults, and representation of more than 20 states, which is truly phenomenal in a sport which has shown great growth in the last 2 years. And setting the structure right in India is very important. We have in our states, we have sports players, administrators who have the experience of growing sports in the past as well. And all these states will, of course, have districts as well where there'll be members who will be setting, because India is so huge, we need independent, strong bodies as well in states to develop the sport. And the most important is to make the 8-year-old children or 10-year-old children to start playing the sport in schools, in districts, in colleges, so that the sport grows from the grassroots development, setting academies, getting foreign coaches over here from US to train them, and that is a structure we're working with. And Indian Pickleball Association, along with the Times Group at PWR, is helping this growth of the ecosystem of the sport by developing the sport right from grassroots, by creating the infrastructure, getting the right coaches and getting the right tournaments and getting the right sponsors, and working strongly with the Asian Pickleball Association and the Global Pickleball Federation to also take it to the Olympics as well. And that's the dream of us as a group as well, to have pickleball as an Olympic sport in 2036 when it happens in India. Pranav, would you like to add to that vision as well about?
Yeah, I mean, it's a single point agenda, 2036 Olympics in India, and pickleball to be an Olympic sport by then, and India to have its first gold medal in pickleball in 2036 Olympics. I think that's the vision we're kind of following. And obviously governance needs to be right and all those things need to be right, but India is going to lead the charge in that. And I think we believe that with the kind of participation we're going to see and the kind of hockey stick growth we're going to see, it's going to be very critical that we take that onus on us. And obviously with the Olympics in all probability going to happen in India, I think it becomes even more imperative that India takes that lead in getting the IOC recognition and getting the sport into the Olympics.
So if I understand this correctly, Pranav, are we saying that between PWR, Global Pickleball Federation and Indian Pickleball Association, it's going to be a melting pot of the most influential players globally, including India, and the most authentic, or let's say the only official global body with an Indian arm for pickleball in the future?
Absolutely. And I think what's very critical is that we need to understand that, as you rightly said, that pickleball has been there since 1965, right? The first governing body in pickleball came in 1984 with USA Pickleball, which till date remains the official and rule-making body across the globe. So all the rules that are being created by USA Pickleball, which is now being transferred to Global Pickleball Federation. And with the Indian Pickleball Association playing a strong role in the formation of Global Pickleball Federation, and also the Asian Pickleball Association playing a strong role in the continental side of it, I think that power shift is going to happen. I would say not power shift, but I think that leadership status is going to come to India to take the sport into the Olympics.
Right. Rohit, as you rightly mentioned, Times Group is known to pioneer a lot of such initiatives, path-breaking initiatives. Taking a cue from what Pranav mentioned about valuations in US, when you say, we have a early starter advantage, are you saying somewhere that brands or let's say team owners who associate right now are looking at that kind of explosive growth in valuations maybe 5 years from now?
So, a couple of conversations which we've been having, the interest levels in terms of wanting to be there is also because they also are playing the sport, and even a better one point I missed out saying is that post-COVID, the regional dynamics, as in terms of the audiences, content for regional and regional brands, has been very strong. So that also plays automatically into the hands of kind of a league format. Because if you talk about, I thought it was, myself, I play pickleball. I was thinking it was a very localized, system in terms of like a sport. But if you look at it, even in Cochin, Surat, these are the kind of places which talking about people are playing pickleball, right? So from, like I would say, even a Kalyan Jewelers from Cochin is interested in wanting to be, for example, right? Somebody from Coimbatore, builder, is interested, wanting to be from Coimbatore. So it's all because now they understand the power of local brand, coming up to be into a national player, and that's an opportunity where, right now, if you look at it from a media fragmentation perspective, trying to find the next wave is most important, and that's what I feel is going to be happening.
And you mentioned about developers. In fact, I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and he was also mentioning that now when buyers go to buy residential properties, they also look at if the facility has pickleball courts or not. But Pranav, coming back to you, a lot of people are curious and they ask very basic questions. You have tracked this sport so closely. If you can just explain the jargon of pickleball. First of all, okay, let's start with why is it called pickleball? Then there are terms like kitchen and all of that. If you can just give a quick summary.
I'll just add on that real estate point, and this is, the statistics that have been done by Zillow, which is one of the top websites for property values in the US. And in the US, any house which has a backyard pickleball court, the value is 30% higher in the same neighborhood. So that is the kind of value. So people are not putting swimming pools anymore in the backyard. They're actually putting pickleball courts because that actually increases the value of the house by 30%. And this is officially a statistic in the US, basically. So just, to add to that point.
And I think it's very easy because I saw some of the images. People are playing pickleball inside New York Stock Exchange, on terraces, in Central Park. They put up so many courts.
Also, Airbnb did there's another app called Swimply, which actually does only listings which have pickleball courts. And Airbnb owners who have pickleball courts on their properties, either in the condominiums or in their houses, actually are able to charge 17% higher rents on their properties. So these are interesting statistics from the sports perspective, because today you don't want to go to a facility which doesn't have pickleball. People are planning their resorts, and the first thing they ask is, do you have a pickleball court? Look at Taj Lands End. They just put in a pickleball court. And the reason for that is because people are actually coming in and asking. Taj, I know for a fact that Taj is looking at doing, pickleball courts at many of their properties. And I think more and more condominiums and builders are understanding that, okay, this is a sport that now you can actually have 2 or 3 courts, have more of the community engaged as opposed to other, thing. And that's where the community also gets built even further. Now coming to the jargon.
Why is it called pickleball?
Yeah. So pickleball is the rumor is that the owner, his dog's name was Pickle, and that's why it's called pickleball. But the actual reality is that the guy who invented the sport, his mother just called it, pickleball basically. So I think that's the reason. But we would like to believe it's because of the
kitchen
dog.
area.
Sorry?
I'm saying, I want to say this is a great pickle to be in.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people
For
say,
a change, we can be pickled.
Yeah.
And the kitchen is basically the non-volley zone where you don't enter and you don't hit the ball on the volley basically. So there's a 7-foot, the dimensions are similar to badminton. it's 44 by 20. In badminton, the service line is 6.5 feet, and in pickleball, it's 7 feet is a non-volley zone. In that non-volley zone, you can't enter, so that's called the kitchen. So typically, people will tell you, get out of my kitchen, basically. So, you can't enter that zone and hit a volley. If the ball bounces, you can hit it. That's typically the two things that you need to remember. And that's it. I mean, those are the rules for pickleball primarily.
All right, time is up, but one last question for you, Adi, very quickly. Do you see more and more professional ranked tennis players migrating to pickleball or completely switching to pickleball? I mean, how soon we'll see Andre Agassi's and Steffi Grafs of the world coming out of pickleball?
So when that started, it was very heartbreaking for me, but it is happening, and there is a lot of professional tennis players who've already moved into pickleball. I think outside the top 100 tennis players, because tennis is a tough sport, and the way the structure of tennis works is not enough people make money, apart from the top 100. So, but there are millions of people playing, and just now there are a lot of movement happening of tennis players moving to pickleball because they have a natural competitive advantage, and the revenue opportunities are much bigger. I think, giving example of a few Indian players are probably making a lot more money than the top tennis players right now, which is great for pickleball. And like Arman Bhatia and Aditya Rohila, these guys are already competing against the top tennis players of India in terms of earnings, or probably even more. So definitely the movement is strong. Movement is here to stay, and you'll see a lot of conversions of already we're of courts and players is going to happen. Actually all racket sports, if it's going to happen, and it's great for the sport, and we're happy to be a part of it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Adi, Pranav, and Rohit. Yeah,
thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks. So let's get pickled. The countdown has begun for the first Indian Pickleball League, which is happening next month. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, gentlemen, for that insightful session on pickleball and a rather interesting story on the nomenclature behind pickleball. Definitely, it's a sport that's growing at an explosive rate, and that transcends age groups as well. And one story that we will be keenly watching as well. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, let me also thank our AI photo partner, Filter Pixel. You can instantly access pictures of the Darbar Hall. This is where this session is happening. You can simply scan the QR code that's displayed on the screen, and the images will be at your fingertips within seconds. And you can share those pictures then on your social media platforms as well, using the hashtag scripting@tomorrow and hashtag GBS2025. With that, we are ready to kickstart the next session, and this is going to be on trade. Well, gentlemen and ladies, trade today is more than just an economic exchange. It's a catalyst for innovation, collaboration, and resilience. In fact, as businesses navigate evolving supply chains, new markets, and transformative policies, unlocking opportunities in this scenario becomes the key. And joining us to explore this dynamic landscape is Frederick D. Wild, President, South and Southeast Asia, Commonwealth of Independent States, Middle East and Africa region. We also have Philip Morris International in conversation with Aisha Faridi, the national editor of ET Now. Please put your hands together for welcoming Aisha and Mr. Wild.
Good morning, everyone. I must confess first, after pickleball and a healthy sport, it feels a little wrong to talk tobacco, perhaps. But we're talking about global trade, right? And how is it that, the world right now can advance global trade and investment? Frederick, morning.
Good morning.
Okay. We're not going to talk kitchen, and we're not going to talk pickles. But let me start off with, you man a vast region, right? You're talking about independent states from within the Commonwealth, Middle East, the Africa region. Tell me, how do countries with very different demographics, with very different policies, with very different people and boundaries, collaborate together to try and advance global trade?
Look, I think global trade has been challenged recently. I think there are commonalities in my company. We are operating in more than 150 countries, right? So I think many of us went through the challenges of COVID when we had to restructure the supply chain. Unfortunately, we had to go to some conflicts as well, which in our case, we had to focus always first on our employees, try to make sure that we keep them safe, sometimes relocate them, but also we try to manage our supply because there is a peculiarity in the tobacco sector. People want their products, and if supply chain is disrupted, this opens the door to what we call illicit trade, contraband, which on the one hand deprives the states from their finances, but also opens the financing of sometimes criminal rings, right? So these are the commonalities, I guess, with many of the people in the audience here. There is a peculiarity in the tobacco sector. People might believe we have trade across the world. What are the challenges for us? The number one challenge is regulation. And I'm not talking about regulation from what you would see as a sector which cigarettes is the norm. I want to talk about what the industry is going through across the world, a significant change. We started 20 years ago with a challenge, right? And we saw people are smoking. The challenge was, how could we, for the people who continue smoking or do not quit, could we come with a solution with products that they would adhere to, but at the same time might have the potential to reduce the risk? So we searched in many areas there, and we quickly understood that the main issue for when people smoke is the combustion. When you combust your product, this is the moment where you create thousands of substances, some of them cancerogenic, and we put all our research and innovation in trying to get rid of combustion. Took a long time. We piloted products, we put science behind it, because on the one hand, we needed product that people would accept. On the other hand, we had to prove that these products would reduce the toxicity, the exposure, and ultimately the risk to people. And after years of research, we hired 500 scientists from around the world. We were not used to that as a tobacco company. We built a very solid scientific package. We started launching our products 10 years ago now in several geographies in the world where we partner with the governments. And I'm glad to say that we sort of disrupted ourselves from the inside. We can see in certain countries that one day traditional cigarette smoking will not exist anymore. And I'm glad to report that in the last quarter, 40% of our net revenues were coming from these better alternatives. So it's a significant shift. I think it's a case study of a company that was very successful, but that is disrupting itself from the inside for the good of their users, for the good of public health. And hence, this is something totally new. Not easy for government to understand. It requires a scientific understanding. It requires changes in the regulation. We've seen very nice partnerships around the world in many countries. We are not yet there in India. We are engaging with the government, but I think we really would love to have a regulatory environment in India where we could bring these products to the people that are smoking here.
That's quite interesting. And, you know, it's a very unique business, yours. It's not need and urgency based, it's addiction. That's what tobacco is, right? So tell me, I mean, let's talk about India. What are the challenges that you face? You did talk about regulation, but where do you see a market like India? And again, you know, your business per se, the one commonality across countries is addiction. If you're addicted to tobacco, you're addicted to tobacco. You know, we're talking about a growing India, per capita income is increasing, people are going ahead for premiumization, it's the top of the pyramid which is doing well. Does that impact your brand as well?
Look, I think first thing that we should mention is that people should not smoke.
Yes,
should not.
Feels very right.
That's what you would tell your families, your friends, right? Now, if they smoke, they should quit. But some people continue smoking and some people cannot quit. And I think with the product we've got around now, with the proof that these products are working, our duty is to bring new alternative products to the people who cannot quit. We've been doing that in several countries in the world.
Tell me
not
more
yet in
about these
India.
alternative products.
Sorry?
Tell me more about these alternative products.
So I was saying these are products that are not combusting. They can take the form of heated tobacco products. They can take the form of nicotine pouches. And the very interesting fact there is that we see good traction in many places. And we also see results. So I can give you a couple of examples. Before being in this position, I was president of Japan and then president of the European Union, right? In Japan, since the introduction of these products, alternatives, the total cigarette business, combustible cigarette business, has been halving. Half. In Europe, take a city in Italy like Rome. In Rome, a third of the smokers have switched to these alternatives. And a very interesting case study is the one of Sweden. The alternatives, these little pouches, were introduced like 30 years ago. If you look at the results now in Sweden, Sweden has the lowest smoking incidence in Europe, around 5%. Amongst 20 to 30, it's almost negligible. Look at the results now from a health perspective. When you look at the lung cancer amongst men, Sweden is the lowest level of lung cancer amongst men incidence in the European Union. So we've got proof, on the one hand, that these products can be accepted by smokers. It's a change of behaviors, but we've been investing $14 billion on our science, our research, but also on our commercial efforts to inform people about it. So it works across the world. These products are not yet available in India. We need to keep partnering with the government to make them available. But it's a major challenge. Sometimes people in the room would say, okay, smoking, this is tobacco, I know it. You know, there are more than 1 billion people smoking in the world. There are 300 million people using tobacco in India, 100 million smokers. So being capable for the ones who cannot quit to come with better alternatives where the toxicity is reduced by more than 90%, it is more than a business for us. It's a mission.
Quite interesting. You did talk about the numbers in India, right? Where is it that you see hurdles or regulatory challenges, if at all, when it comes to a market like India, because it's such a large, addressable base for a company like yours?
Look, we heard yesterday in all the panels and certainly in the speech of the Honorable Prime Minister that, first of all, the results are stellar, but there is a lot of work behind it, and we've heard the speed at which regulation has changed in many sectors. Talk about banking, energy, mobile phones. So speed is important, right? And when speed is there, investments come, development comes. And as I was saying before, sometimes the tobacco sector is seen as an old sector, people smoke, not much can be done about it. As I mentioned before, we have the capability now to make drastic change in smokers' life, but also in public health overall. So today we still have a foreign direct investment ban in India, but with this new technology, with this new science that we could bring, not leaving the 300 million tobacco users in India behind, I think we could go to a Viksit Bharat also for the tobacco sector in India, and we would be more than willing to invest here once the appropriate regulatory framework would be in place. And as mentioned by the Prime Minister yesterday, in terms of public health and policies, of course, India is a significant partner worldwide, but I think India could also shape this regulation worldwide, and that's what we are looking for.
But when a company such as yours decides to invest and get into a country, tell me what factors, what parameters actually sort of guide you to invest more in a country? And let's start off with the India example.
Look, first thing obviously is the domestic market, and it's not negligible in India, right? But it goes beyond the domestic market. I think in India, the moment we might be able to bring these products, we know that the workforce quality, the talents that we find here, that by the way we have in our company in India, but also many Indians outside India, is a key parameter. But it goes beyond that, because with the scale of India capabilities, we are sure that we can create economies of scales and innovation there, which would make India for us a hub for exports. And there is another peculiarity in our sector. This is all about the tobacco growers, right? Yeah. And in our case, India is one of the top tobacco growing country in the world. Sometimes it's not well known. we are partnering with all these growers with one thing in mind. We are implementing good agricultural practices with these people. And what we have in mind there is, first of all, help them to increase their productivity with the right equipment, the right technology. Second, try to minimize their own footprint in their communities. And the third one is to make sure that we ensure for these people, I would say, long-term sustainable revenue so that they can get the appropriate level of income for themselves and for their families. So that's very peculiar for our sector.
Right. But tell me, Frederick, you know, a lot of countries and companies and, you know, investment bodies take ESG compliance very, very seriously. I mean, if you talk about a country, top that comes to my mind is perhaps Singapore. Does that act as a hindrance for you to do business in a country?
Look, we do business in many, many places, as I
Yes.
was saying before. But what matters to us is not so much the country. We want to put the consumer first. We've got alternatives for smokers that can drastically change their life at the end of the day. And I think our mission now is to make sure that these alternatives will be available. Now, some countries have partnered with the industry or with us for a long period of time. We have to recognize it's not easy. You come to a government like the government in India, you've seen the priorities, all the things that have to be done. And we are only one sector. But as I mentioned before, it matters for millions of people. So we will keep on partnering with the government, and we would be really looking forward to bring our innovation, our science, our investments, and our talents just for the sake of bringing these products to the Indian smokers.
Frederick, you do business across the world, and you gave very interesting data points about Japan and what's happening in Sweden. From your experience, what are some of the successful examples of trade agreements and alliances that Philip Morris has formed with countries?
As I was saying, there are several governments in the world that really embraced a policy of bringing better alternatives for smokers. Of course, it's not easy, as I was saying before, because it's not the cigarette of the past. This is scientifically driven type of products, which means that your counterpart needs to have the capability and the time and the investment to look at the science, look at the products, look at what happened outside, and build a regulatory framework for these products that is different from cigarettes. So there is quite of an action needed by the regulator to make these products available. And we've seen successes across the world, and we are partnering here in India, and we would be glad one day to see a regulatory framework for these products being implemented here.
But in your observation, considering, you know, you've worked with a lot of developed economies, you've worked with emerging markets, you just talked about India as well, is there any difference in how countries behave, in the policies that they have, in the way that they do business when it comes to developed markets and emerging markets?
I wouldn't qualify and divide emerging markets with developed markets. At the end of the day, this is much more the willingness from a government to look at one significant issue they might face in their public health, which is people smoking, and then address it, right? And we see governments that have partnered, that have created regulatory frameworks for these products, and where we see traction both in the Western world and in the developing world. But sometimes, you know, we looked at countries where the regulatory framework has been designed and where these products are available, and I mentioned the traction, right? Ironically, in the countries where these products are not available, what we see often is that the cigarette, the old cigarette, combustible cigarette market is still growing, right? Yeah. So it's not a divide between developed or non-developed or growing economies. It's much more the willingness for government to partner with the industry, look at the product, look at the science, build the appropriate regulatory framework so that we can inform people, and we will do the effort and the investment to convert them from burning their cigarettes to better alternatives. This is our job.
Right, interesting. I'm very curious to know, because you earlier talked about pandemic and how the challenges were during COVID. Now, for an addiction industry like yours, tell me how you maneuvered through that patch.
To the pandemic, you mean?
Yes.
Look, I think it was not very different, I guess, from many people in the room here. I think we had to review our supply chain. Borders were closed. We had to review also the supply to our trade partners. And I have to say, not only in my company, we've seen that across the world, the resilience and the adaptability of our people and of the supply chain has been incredible. And actually, we did not face many disruptions overall. I think we were helped also by digital. I think it pushed many of our employees and trade partners to move even faster to digital. But overall, we experienced minimal disruption despite the storm we all went through.
Well, that's quite interesting to note because everyone knew that you shouldn't be smoking. COVID was all about lungs. But yeah, an addiction is an addiction, right? Interesting. But I also wanted to talk about as to how in this very fast, dynamically evolving world with geopolitical tensions, trade tariffs, what Trump 2.0 is going to bring about, how do you see the tobacco industry actually moving forward? And do you see any challenges when it comes to your industry at large?
Look, as I was mentioning, I believe the tobacco industry now, as I explained, is in a significant transformation. Well, 10 years ago, people thought that cigarettes were there, they were there to stay. Now that we've seen that we can convert people from smoking to these better alternatives, we can really envisage, I mentioned Sweden before, smoking incidents, 5%, negligible amongst 20 to 30 people. One might think that one day, and it could be tomorrow, we could see the end of the traditional cigarettes because of the advent of these alternatives, which is a significant change. It is historical, and I think the magnitude of this for public health is just immense. I was mentioning before, more than 1 billion people smoke in the world, so any intervention amongst this number of people would make the public health equation much, much better.
So as a company, what is the strategy for the next 5 years? To have people smoke more or smoke clean?
I think we've embarked on moving people away from cigarettes. The majority of our investments are going beyond these alternatives, and we are focused on delivering on this. As I was mentioning, very few companies have disrupted themselves from the inside as we did. Very few companies have created products that compete with their historical products and that generate, after 10 years, 40% of their net revenues. And our goal is to keep going and one day be 100% in alternatives and leave the cigarette behind. Create a smoke-free world.
I want to know more about alternatives, and I'm sure everyone here would also want to know. I mean, we all know cigarettes are harmful and one shouldn't be smoking. But is there no nicotine in alternatives? How do they work?
No, there are nicotine in alternatives. Actually, nicotine is not a cancerogenic element. Nicotine is not the main cause of harm in smoking. As I was mentioning before, the issue with smoking is that you burn tobacco. When you burn tobacco, it's like a barbecue. You create more than 6,000 substances. Some of them are cancerogenic. So the idea was to get your nicotine, to get your flavor, do you really need to burn something? Or could you get this through alternative that would be non-burning? And that was the entire challenge we've been facing. We had put a lot of research to get there, because on the one hand, you need to come with a product that you can prove scientifically is reducing toxicity by more than 90%, and therefore reduce the potential risk of individual users. But on the other hand, these products need to be acceptable by smokers. And I think we struck that balance after, as I was saying, lots of years of research, piloting, failure. And 10 years ago, when we tried some of the products that are in the marketplace now, I could see the light. And the light was first inside the company, when some smokers in the company completely switched to these products. And then we said, we tried, we piloted, some of these products were not yet ready for being marketed. Now, if some of our employees are switching totally to these products, we've got something that would work for consumers. And we had to transform the company totally, because we were a traditional tobacco company, And here you're asking people to change behavior. You need to be able to communicate to smokers and say, leave this habit. What is the alternative there? Explain the science. Make sure that they would have their satisfaction in the product. Create the appropriate route to market for this product. Sometimes it involves electronics, things we didn't know. Interact with them digitally. We were not doing that. So we had to rebuild the company from the inside to sell products that are totally different from the traditional one we were selling before.
Frederick, you must be having such interesting data now about all the countries and all their, sort of tobacco consuming and non-tobacco consuming market. You did talk about Sweden, which may go net neutral, hopefully soon. Tell me, what are some of the interesting findings and all the data that you have across geographies with you?
Can you come again? I didn't hear.
No, what I wanted to know is, you know so many patterns about countries, about, the demographics, smokers, non-smokers, clean smokers, if that's the correct terminology, I don't know. What are some of the interesting observations that you've found in all the data that you've gathered across countries?
Look, I think smokers are using their products and there are commonalities across the world, right? Yeah. And the commonality we mentioned, we created alternatives that would satisfy people, that would be scientifically proven. And if they work with smokers in one place, very often they would work with a smoker in another place. So the product side of things has been totally looked after. Now, we have to adapt our strategy market by market, right? The first one I mentioned is get the appropriate regulatory framework in your market. If you cannot communicate with smokers about these products, it's very hard to make them change their behavior. Smokers use their products 10 times per day. They are used to it. To convince them to let them try, you need a certain parameter in your regulatory framework to allow for that, right? So that's one very important part of the equation. Now, of course, we need then to adapt to the regulatory environment, but also the route to market has to be different. The messaging has to be different. The way you approach trade has to be different. And it's also varying not from one country to another. We know there are many Indias in India, right? Yeah. So the way you will talk to someone in the southern part of India vis-à-vis Delhi has to be adapted. But look, we've got teams there. We are multinational, but we are made out of people that are in their communities. They know their consumers, they know their trade partners, and they can craft the best messages and the best approach to deliver these alternatives to smokers.
So before we wind down, I want to know, are people smoking more or are they smoking less than, say, 1 year back? Or let's say since pandemic?
It very depends on the country. Yeah. In the country and countries where these alternative products have been launched, people are smoking less. I mentioned cigarette business in Japan halved since we introduced these products. But conversely, in countries that have not yet created the appropriate framework for these products to be available for people, sometimes we even see an increase in the total cigarette volume in these markets. And that's why our mission there is to partner with the governments, make sure they look at our science, and make sure they build a sustainable regulatory framework so that we can offer these products to the 300 million, certainly in India, tobacco users and the more than 1 billion in the world.
Well, I hope you get to a partnership with the Indian government soon and we see more alternatives here in India. Thank you so much, Frederick.
Welcome.
Pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.
Aisha and Mr. Weil for sharing your valuable insights on advancing global trade and investment. This session has surely provided us with a clear understanding of the challenges and its potential in today's landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also make an announcement here. You can scan the QR code that's displayed on the screen to instantly access pictures of the Darbar Hall. There's several sessions going on. You can access all of those pictures with the help of that QR code. Within seconds, the images will be at your fingertips thanks to our AI photo partner, Filter Pixel. You can also share them on your social media platforms using the hashtag #ScriptingItTomorrow and hashtag GBS2025. So that's a quick announcement about using that hashtag, accessing all the pictures from this summit from GBS 2025 from the main Darbar Hall. You'll be able to access them and you can post them on your social media platforms, and do share your thoughts with us on the event.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, India is clearly on a very bold path to economic leadership. We've been hearing from industry stalwarts, we've heard from government agents all through yesterday, and we've got a power-packed lineup today as well. And we've been talking about economic leadership, Sumita, and how one can innovate, invest, and of course collaborate as well on a global platform, and how we can take forward the one world, one nation theme going forward.
Absolutely, Aisha. And our next session is going to focus on that exactly, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to be focusing on trade and investment climate in the country. And we'll be joined by a very special guest. In fact, he's the Minister of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, Shri Piyush Goyal, who's been instrumental in shaping policies that position India as a powerhouse in trade, manufacturing, technology, and improving ease of doing business in the country.
Oh yeah. Before that, the minister is already here in the house. We're just awaiting him to get here. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of our partners. The Global Business Summit is co-powered by Google, our co-powered sponsor, Bennett University, the Times Group, our celebration partner, Teachers Packaged Drinking Water, our smart logistics partner, FedEx, and our India Innovation partner, that's Process, Commercial and Investment Bank partner, JP Morgan. And ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor right now to welcome Shri Piyush Goyal right here in the audience. Please put your hands together for Mr. Piyush Goyal. India is clearly on a bold path to economic leadership, driven by innovation, investment, and global collaboration.
Right, Aisha, and maybe please put our hands together once again for Shri Piyush Goyal, Union Minister of Commerce and Industry. Minister Piyush Goyal has been instrumental in driving ease of doing business in the country, improving a business environment, fostering international partnerships, and promoting economic growth.
So, can we have you on stage, please? A huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Very good morning to all the distinguished participants of the Global Business Summit. Thank you, Vinayji, for giving me an opportunity to engage with such a distinguished group of friends. Thank you, Navika. Thank you, Nikunj. Friends, we are living in very exciting times. And as I was coming in, Navika ji felt I should touch upon where we see the world today and where we see India's role in the emerging economic challenges. And I think the Business Summit does give me an opportunity to talk about India's ambitions, new ideas, how we are forging partnerships and pathways to a better future for 140 crore Indians. And in a way, your theme, evolve, emerge, and expand, mirrors the India story. And I'll try to keep my address around the way we have evolved, the way we have emerged, the way we have expanded the India growth story in the last 10 years, now soon to be 11. I think India's rise has been across 5 important pillars. 1, our global leadership, particularly as a global soft power. 2, the economy, what we've done on manufacturing and investments. 3, innovation and entrepreneurship. 4, infrastructure development and consumption-led growth. And 5th, women-led development. And on all these 5 pillars, India has been able to showcase an emerging story which, as rightly the Honorable Prime Minister yesterday mentioned, is well on track to become the world's 3rd largest economy in the very near future, much ahead of what was estimated 10 years ago. In terms of global leadership, whether it is our successful hosting of the G20, our navigation of the various problems, conflicts that other parts of the world were facing, be it the Ukraine-Russia crisis, be it the Palestinian-Israeli situation, in every score, handling of the COVID crisis, expanding and forging new partnerships and relationships across the world, new free trade agreements with the developed world, Australia, UAE, Liechtenstein, Iceland, Switzerland, and Norway. The progress we are making in other engagements with Europe, and the progress we will soon make with the United States of America as we proceed to finalize a trade deal by fall of this year, are all reflective of India's growing relevance at the global stage. And it's no mean achievement that when the world is struggling with significant possible disturbance on the trade front, on the economic front, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was the first leader of a large economy to be invited to the White House. You saw the tremendous goodwill that Prime Minister Modi has earned for India, for 140 crore Indians across different administrations. And you saw how Prime Minister Narendra Modi was able to ensure the successful future of our international trade, of our growing business with around the world, and the US being the world's #1 economy. It's something that I have always felt would be a natural partnership between the two countries, which we hope to now culminate in the next 6 or 7 months. In fact, I still remember, and I've possibly said it on the same stage here earlier, that when the US ambassador under the first Trump administration came to meet me, I think it was 2017 possibly, in the course of the conversation, my reaction to him was, I wonder why the US and India cannot expand trading relations, cannot enter into an agreement to support each other's economies, particularly given that we are two democracies, we are two countries which believe in the rule of law, in transparent administrations and governance, and we both are against non-market economies, which often disturb the manufacturing ecosystem or businesses around the world. At that point of time, the general refrain used to be the Congress will not allow the United States to enter into new trading arrangements. But what the Prime Minister has brought back with him, an agreement or an understanding to enter into a trade deal by fall of this year, I think gives a lot of confidence and a lot of relief to every business person in the United States and in India who believe that together we can truly transform world trade. Together with our competitive strengths in different areas, we can truly work as two friends, as two partners for progress and prosperity. And therefore our growing global relevance, and there are so many countries around the world who have already recognized Prime Minister Modi's popularity and his contribution to the world. I think 19 awards at last count by different countries and multilateral organizations have been conferred on Prime Minister Modi. 19 awards. I don't know of any other leader who can boast of so many awards. And each one of them, the Prime Minister has taken in all humility on behalf of 140 crore Indians. In the same breath, if you look at the kind of relations that he's been able to build across the world, whether it's different partners, whether it's different countries who don't see eye to eye, India has always been at the forefront of trying to support global peace, global prosperity, dialogue, diplomacy, and through the last 10 years, I think India's own position around the world has significantly upped what we had inherited in 2014. In fact, when any of you goes abroad, I'm quite sure that the respect that the Indian passport gets today, we have never experienced in our life before. So we really need to be very, very proud to be an Indian today, and we can say that we will be at the forefront of global prosperity going forward. As a soft power also, our services exports, our services engagement with all the top large corporations around the world continue to grow. At last count, about 1,800 global capability centers operating out of India. The trust which India and Indian businesses earned across the world during COVID, when we met every single international obligation that we had made, be it in supply of goods, be it in back office operations, be it in technology, be it in design, innovation, every single commitment that India had made to the world, we were able to meet on time, working from home, rejigging our processes, allowing export-oriented units to continue to work. Every single step was taken to ensure that we earn the goodwill and trust of the entire world. And I think it is that trust that is giving us a payback when we are seeing not only design in India growing, not only make in India growing, but serve from India also becoming a major India story in the last few years. For that matter, I think one learning out of COVID has been that everything need not be out of local presence. There's a lot that can be done literally from a third location, which is what we call work from home during COVID. And that has translated today to outsourcing a lot of processes to other countries. And India has been one of the largest beneficiaries of outsourcing, which has gone across borders. And India and young Indians, we produce the highest number of STEM graduates every year. And by the way, 43% of them are women. And they are the ones at the leading edge of providing services to the world, demonstrating India's growing soft power. In terms of the economy, in terms of manufacturing and investment, I think the infrastructure-led growth story and now the consumption-led growth story, both of them collectively are contributing to an economy which powers on to be the fastest growing large economy in the world. We have a strong macroeconomic fundamental. In fact, many people look at our foreign exchange reserves, which are today the fourth largest in the world, in the context of our overall current account deficit, which I believe is the right way to look at it. Because while we do have a trade deficit, we in goods. We make up a large part of it through trade surplus in services. At the same time, we have about 130 billion, the largest in the world, coming in as remittances. We have several invisibles like tourism, another thrust area going forward, which will create job opportunities and business opportunities in the country. All of these put together leave us with a current account deficit which is barely 1.1% of our GDP. And in that context, our foreign exchange reserves today will last us for more than 10 years. And therefore, they see the India story as an oasis of stability, continuity, and predictability in an otherwise very turbulent world. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is supporting manufacturing. The Make in India story now going to be led by a national manufacturing mission, which will come up with newer ideas and address the challenges that manufacturing in India face, MSMEs or otherwise, and ensure that making in India becomes more competitive, logistics costs is well under control, and quality, which is defining India's manufacturing journey today, will be our calling card when we go out there to the world and support global desires, global consumption through the Make in India program, also becoming Atmanirbhar, self-reliant in our own demand that we have in the country. And this story of a strong economy, a big thrust on manufacturing, record foreign direct investment coming into the country is all supported by the twin pillars of infrastructure-led development, and we all recognize that infrastructure investments almost have a 3x multiplier impact on the economy. This budget has ensured a lot more money in the pocket of Indian middle class, almost $12–13 billion additional will be available to our middle class for consumption. And most of us in this room recognize that consumption money is money spent on all the good things of life, also have a 2–2.5x multiplier. And when you spend nearly $130 billion on investments in infrastructure, then you leave much more money in the pocket of the middle class. Collectively, you're giving a big thrust to job creation, giving a big boost to demand for goods and services, which leads to entrepreneurship, greater business opportunities, and to investments in manufacturing to support that big demand. Sometimes I get journalists who keep asking me, are you worried about the growing imports? And I say, no, I'm in fact very happy to see our imports growing, because that is what will encourage our Indian investors and the world investors to come to India and invest into manufacturing. It's that assured demand that generates the confidence to invest in India, support job creation, and support economic activity. So collectively, when we look at the India story in the context of a very, very well-designed, very well-planned effort to promote the economy, to promote job creation, to ensure inclusive growth through the length and breadth of the country, ensuring that every person living in India, every citizen of India, across the length and breadth of the country, has the basic needs of food, clothing, shelter, electricity, good connectivity through roads, airways, now inland waterways in a big way, clean drinking water, good health care, good education. As you ensure that you are reaching the basic needs to every single person living in India, you are encouraging a young generation of aspirational Indians. And with a young population, less than 30 years old, with 2/3 of our people in the working age group, today we are boasting of an aspirational young India driving growth, driving the economy, driving our effort to take prosperity to the last man at the bottom of the pyramid. And friends, these are the youngsters who come up with innovative ideas. They come up with a new entrepreneurship zeal. After all, we launched Startup India only about 9 years ago. And in this short span of 9 years, we have become the world's third largest startup ecosystem, boasting over 115 unicorns, 160,000 registered startups. I don't know how many more are experimenting with new ideas and new ways of making ease of doing business or ease of living on the ground possible for our people. And I think collectively, the innovation spirit, the spirit of inquiry that our young men and women are displaying, the job creators who are not just seeking jobs but are actually out there with newer ideas, are the ones who are defining the growth story, are the young people, men and women, who are ensuring that India paces on to become a $30-35 trillion economy in the next 22, 23 years. And friends, lastly, it's women-led development, which the Honorable Prime Minister has focused right since 2014. He recognized that India cannot develop until we ensure two very important factors. One, we ensure that all of India develops. Eastern parts of India, Northeast India play an equal role in the growth story of India. And over the last 10 years, that has been a focus area of the country and this government to ensure more regional parity and more growth across the length and breadth of India. But all of this would be incomplete unless we have the women of India right at the forefront of our development journey, and particularly in the formal economy. I remember we had about 11% women in the formal workforce about 10 years ago. Our effort is to take it right up to 45-50%, so that women contribute, and the contribution that many of them are already doing also starts getting recognized and captured in our statistics to ensure that every woman in the country knows that she has an opportunity to support India's growth story. And over the last 10 years, empowering our women folk, whether it is through public welfare activities, whether it's through skill development activities, the larger enrollment of women in our schools and colleges. As I said earlier, 43% of our STEM graduates are women as we speak. Whether it is through ensuring that women are given a focused attention to ensure that they are not required to be only looking after the day-to-day course of life or existence, but have the freedom and ability to provide for their families through growing incomes and growing consumption expenditures available for them to do, to provide for a better future for their children, for their families. I think this journey has really taken off very admirably. Our women folk are contributing a much, much larger share to the formal economy, and be it our effort to give them greater political heft through the reservation for women in the parliament or state legislatures, be it our effort to ensure the rights of the girl child and improve our ratio between men and women, whether it's our effort to ensure that every girl child gets good schooling, gets good quality health care so that she continues until higher education, in most cases available free of charge for the girl child, whether it's our effort to include them through financial inclusion, through registration of properties in women's name being encouraged, encouraging them to get into activities. Earlier, the preserve of men only I think it's been a holistic effort which Prime Minister Modi, through different initiatives in the last 11 years, has brought to the table, whether it was his effort to take digital connectivity through the length and breadth of India. And I heard the telecom minister yesterday speaking about the world's fastest rollout of 5G in the country, getting into development of an indigenous 6G, the technology which will make communication 5 or 6 times faster, whether it's our initiatives for financial inclusion, taking a bank account to every adult in the country, now going into ensuring that even children have bank accounts, whether it's providing financial security to our sisters and daughters, whether it's providing good education through the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao program, whether it's the skill development initiatives. I recently launched in my own constituency a very unique initiative where we are paying women above 18 years of age a stipend and connecting them with the insurance ecosystem. Bima Sakhi Yojana. Bima is insurance. Sakhi is friend. Making our sisters, our young women, insurance agents, teaching them about insurance, teaching them about this power of having social security through insurance products, and helping them through a paid program where they get a stipend for the initial 3 years, helping them to learn the nuances of insurance and making them insurance agents to get more and more people a better understanding about social security. Now these young women with not much formal education, but the personality that they bring to the table, and I've had opportunity to engage with some of them, is absolutely remarkable. The way they connect with people, the way they are able to express themselves, the way they are able to take the message of social security. I dare say none of us men in the room would be able to do half as good a job. I just hope the male LIC agents don't get unhappy with me. But I dare say the contribution that my sisters and our women in the country are doing is truly remarkable. And with women-led development, I don't think there's any power on earth which can stop India from becoming a developed nation, a prosperous nation by 2047. Let us all work together as a team, as Team India, cutting across political parties, cutting across individual states and center. I think we all have a role together, because together we can take the country to greater heights. Sustainable development and inclusive development, the two mantras of this government, will determine the success of India in the years to come. And I think engagements such as the Global Business Summit by the Times Media Group is truly a great opportunity to exchange ideas, to understand views, to learn from the experts in the economic space, and to get feedback from our stakeholders so that we can also do our job better in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Akis to join us, but let me just brief you a bit about Nothing. It's a smartphone brand that started in 2020 by two gentlemen. One of them was from the smartphone industry itself. But within just a span of 2-3 years, Nothing has given competition to legacy players as well, and the kind of share of mind that Nothing has gained is something to truly take note of. And we'll be shortly joined by Akis to discuss what's been the growth journey of Nothing globally and of course in India as well. It's a rather interesting case study of what founders and what startup founders particularly can take note of when they're setting up consumer tech businesses. Remember, this industry is an extremely competitive industry. There are too many legacy players, but to actually make that change, to actually get that kind of community going for you, to get people to talk about you, to have fan clubs of your company within just a matter of a year and a half is truly no small feat. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, we have Akis here. Please put your hands together for Akis. Very well.
Hi, everyone.
So, Akis, I was just talking about the kind of share of mind that Nothing has developed these past few years. In fact, ever since you launched. In fact, I remember the time when the announcement came about Nothing as a brand getting launched. There was massive hype. There were a lot of fan clubs going. You have a huge community of very, very loyal followers that swear by your design. Give us an understanding of what was the strategy behind this kind of a launch that has been a success since the very beginning you guys started.
I think it started quite in a simple way. We look at ourselves as users, basically. And at the time, I think we were just not excited by what the market had to offer. Like, everything looked the same. There was nothing to look forward to. And overall, a lot of negativity around technology, like with social media, skyrocketing, kind of level of depression associated to kind of social media consumptions. Everything looked the same. So for us, we look at ourselves as users and trying to kind of bring that excitement we once felt where we grew up with the launch of the first iPod, interacting with the first iPhone. Those were magic moments. So we just wanted to kind of bring back that excitement. So the low-hanging fruit was to start with design differentiation. A lot of people got really excited because our whole point was to make a design that you could recognize from 2 meters away without looking at the logo. And then gradually the opportunity became bigger and bigger. We executed towards a strategy. Like, first it was an audio product to have a proof of concept. Then we entered the smartphone industry back in 2022. And since then we've been kind of ramping up our portfolio. And last year was a massive year for us. We were the fastest smartphone brand here in India.
Right.
We grew by 577%.
Yes.
And while just kind of still experimenting. So it sort of shows that the market is eager for a new brand, that there is appetite for something new, something fresh. So yeah, we're extremely excited.
So when you talk about the kind of growth that you have gained in the India market, ladies and gentlemen, let me mention that Nothing actually grew by 567% in just the first half of 2024. I mean, 567%, that's crazy. So kudos to you and of course the entire team of Nothing that's putting all of these products together and of course building the brand as we are seeing it today. But you have now, you have earphones. You have, of course, the Nothing Phone 3 that's going to launch in just a few days from now.
3 first.
Right?
3.
Nothing Phone 3, and you have a watch as well. What's coming up next from the Nothing Fold?
No, I think for us, so if you look back, like we started with kind of design differentiation and heavily focusing on software for the last 2 years, and we're extremely excited now with kind of AI coming along. While there has been a lot of buzzwords around using AI and so on, nothing has been anchored in real use cases. And your smartphone is at the center of your everyday life. The smartphone knows you better than yourself in a way. So we've been kind of thinking in a very pragmatic way in terms of anchoring and solving real use cases through that. So software will be a major focus for this year and the years to come, on top of like keep on refining our hardware value proposition.
So when you say that software is going to be your key focus, besides of course, design innovations and inventions that will come about in your products, what kind of software focus are you going to give, and what is going to define the next phase of innovation, especially as far as smartphones and consumer tech is concerned?
I think the user interface hasn't changed much in a way ever since the first iPhone was launched, the sort of app-based approach. But now the world is changing. I think with the way we're interacting with our smartphone has drastically changed. So we kind of really rethink what that kind of new user interface is going to be and actively working on it. So we're going to be gradually rolling it out this year. And quite excited, and I think that's our biggest opportunity. We entered in this market kind of really trying to rethink the whole user experience, both from a hardware level with the design and now heavily leading onto software. And, when you start thinking about things in a different way versus kind of all the time settling for the status quo, and I think historically speaking, even though people think it's such a saturated market, nothing has happened in the past few years. Everyone has been doing the same thing. Here in India, brands have been focusing for value for money. That's where all the sort of Chinese OEMs that have entered in the industry have built a level of brand equity, whereas we aspire to kind of redefine the user experience and also in a way bring a more kind of aspirational element to the brand. I think the new generation...
So what do you mean when you say aspirational elements? Give us some of the features that the Nothing Phone 3 will have that are going to be different from what the industry has to offer.
But I think it's overall, when you're interacting with a Nothing product, it feels fresh, it feels something different, yet something super intuitive. We're carefully thinking about the overall user experience as soon as you unlock your phone. And then, we've seen a lot of Nothing users, the first thing they do, they put the phone on the table. It's a product they're proud of. It's not just a functional product. And I think now, especially with a very young demographic here in India, people aspire like more from the smartphone. It's not just kind of a tool. It's something we carry every day. It should be reflecting your identity in a way, and having a very differentiated design starts from there, but and then gradually again ramping up the software experience.
Right, and how are you really looking at then when we talk about smartphone offerings and of course consumer tech, how are you looking at this manufacturing in India story? Because when we look at data, it suggests that electronics exports from India have been amongst the top 5 categories as far as exports are concerned. India is also making 99%, meeting 99% of its domestic targets. How are you looking at that story? How are you looking at government initiatives with respect to PLI and other schemes that are doing the rounds? Are you looking at expanding production right here in India? Because the government is also going to be coming up with a scheme that will give a boost to manufacturing components here locally.
Yeah, 100%. Again, last year we're the fastest smartphone brand here in India. We're not planning to slow down anytime soon, and that involves a lot more things. So we've been producing our products here in Chennai. We're now looking at other plans in terms of expansion and investments on how we can further develop our India business. I think it's such an exciting country. I think it's at the epicenter of innovation, and so much to be done here. And I'll be also spending a lot more time in India moving forward. I think there is such amazing opportunities, and we have a proof of concept from last year that things are working. With some level of struggle, but relatively with no effort. I think our product market fit is really strong here. And that will involve more initiatives from Nothing in India.
So
definitely.
when you say that, the Nothing story is growing rather strong here in India, but how strong is it when compared to the rest of the markets that you operate in?
It's definitely a very strategic market and focused market for us. I think here in India, it's incredible how people know the tech. I think it's, I've never, in Europe, the sort of tech-savvy audience is roughly around 3 to 4%. Here is over 20 to 30%. So people really know the tech. So as a new consumer tech brand, bringing a whole new perspective on what technology should be. Ever since from the get-go, we had such a strong level of excitement and support around the brand. And year after year, again, the multiples in terms of growth have been tremendous. So definitely it's going to be a key market for us and for the long term.
All right, so India is going to be a key market for you. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, we are also seeing domestic consumption slowly and gradually pick up. Domestic growth story of the country has been a key driver of India's growth. But Akis, let me also ask you about the funding environment and funding ecosystem, because nothing essentially was a startup. And up till now, you've raised about $250 million in funding. And that also at a time when there's been a slowdown in the startup ecosystem. So what are your key lessons to somebody who's trying to build a consumer tech brand in terms of, wooing investors, and how to just sort of keep going even when the tide is against you?
Yeah, so to be honest, it was very hard in the beginning because no brand has succeeded in our industry in the last 10 years. No non-Chinese brand has successfully launched in China for the longest time ever. So it was really hard to convince people that we are going to be that brand. So in the early days, it was a bit harder, but then as we started executing towards a strategy, year one was like building a proof of concept, just focusing on design differentiation. And we started with an audio product. We sold over 500,000 units. Then that was our proof of concept. All right, there is appetite for a new brand. Then off the back of that, we raised a second round to start developing our smartphone. And then people were like, oh, you're crazy to even think about entering this industry because the value chain is extremely complex. You can get the product right, but if you don't get your marketing and generating the demand, then you go bankrupt. So you have to be very good at every single stage, the value chain when it comes to a smartphone product. We did that successfully with Phone 1. We sold over 700,000 units. Again, we then start building our own internal product capabilities. There we launched Phone 2, which again, the reception was incredible. It was mentioned as the most improved smartphone of the year by MKBHD, who is probably the most renowned YouTuber. And then last year was all about scale. So we took this kind of unique value proposition that we've created both on a hardware and software level and start entering different price segments. And as a result of that, again, in India, we grew by 577% year on year. So we've just been executing strategically towards kind of this growth path. And as long as you execute successfully, then it makes it easier to raise.
567% growth year on year. It's a very big target to achieve. What are your targets this year, especially from the India market?
I mean, as I mentioned, we're not planning to slow down. And if anything, last year was more of an experiment. See if we ramp up our investment, we start kind of scaling offline in India. We start doing kind of a bit more traditional campaigns, but not a lot. And boom, all of a sudden we're able to go under this kind of...
You don't want to give a figure?
Eh?
You don't want to give a figure, a definitive figure that you're looking at?
I mean, we have our own figures. We don't communicate, but deep inside I know that, again, last year we did it just an experiment. This year we're going to go a lot more serious. So hopefully even a stronger growth for this year.
One final question, Akis, because I'm being told that we're completely out of time.
Yeah, there was a big red sign.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Apple? Carl has spoken about Apple openly, but I want to hear your thoughts before we wrap up this session.
I mean, we share the same opinion. Apple is a massive company that needs to tailor to the mass audiences. So whereas for us, our opportunity is to have a more kind of focused approach with a very unique value proposition, and also having the ability to have a bolder bets when it comes to the software innovation we're bringing. So I think we're super excited to be in our shoes today. We have a lot to do, especially with the whole AI revolution coming along.
Right. So nothing on the path to take bolder bets so far as the India market is concerned. Thank you very much for joining us here at the Global Business Summit. Akis, pleasure having you.
Thank you so much, Akis, for your valuable insights today. And of course, your emphasis on simplifying technology to craft seamless experiences resonates deeply with all of us as we move forward to a more efficient future. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can scan the QR code displayed on the screen right now to instantly access pictures of the Darbar Hall within seconds. The images will be at your fingertips thanks to our AI photo partner, that's Filter Pixel. Share them on your social media handles. Use the hashtag Scripting of Tomorrow and hashtag GBS2025. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we move on to our next panel. Well, clearly athletes don't just win medals, they inspire nations as well, define resilience and drive billion-dollar industries. So, ladies and gentlemen, to discuss what it takes to build a champion mindset in sports, business leadership and life, we have with us a very esteemed panel.
Absolutely, Aisha. So, ladies and gentlemen, in just a short while from now, we'll be joined by Katie Sadlier, CEO of Commonwealth Games Federation, Luciano Rossi, President of International Shooting Sports Federation, and that session will be moderated by Karishma Singh, news editor at the Times Network. So, let's put our hands together in welcoming the panel.
For that. Katie, let's get straight into it. Sports shaping nations, it's a very, very interesting topic. And I want to start with, major sporting events like the CWG, the Commonwealth Games. How much do you think they help in shaping national identity and global influence as well?
Oh, they're hugely significant. I mean, you just have to listen to the amazing speech by the president yesterday about India and its development. Being a global sporting power fast tracks that in terms of everyone loves sport. Whether you're a child that aspires to be your superhero, or your superhero which is driving brand growth, or you're working diplomatically across the nations, it is a huge thing to host international sporting events.
And let's also talk about it from the India perspective. You've been in India, the president has been in India. There have been some informal conversations about 2030 Commonwealth Games as well. So how have those conversations been like? You've toured possible venues as well, if I talk about Bhubaneswar or Ahmedabad as well. So what are the conversations like?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say that I am so impressed, and I know the president is so impressed with the world-class infrastructure that is all around India, but we did have the opportunity to just have a look and see what the plans are for the future. So from that perspective, it was amazing. The political support, the passion by the people that showed us around about how important multi-sport events are to transform the nation was really, really impressive. And so the will is there. When you understand the power of a global sporting event like the Commonwealth Games to really fast-track development, it seems like something that India is really up for, and we're really keen to work with them on this expression of interest process.
Well, absolutely. That is going to be very interesting to see. Luciana, I want to bring you in as well. Let's talk about, what do you think are the top strategies when we talk about sports shaping nations that they can imbibe to ensure that there is a strong pipeline of champions that keeps on creating?
Good morning to everybody. Thanks to Times Group for organize this event, invite me, invite us. The ISSF is the World Shooting Sport Federation. We are working hard for a long time, of course. It is our mission. We also organize 15 events in the Olympics. So you can imagine the story, because the story of the Olympics started with Pierre de Coubertin, that was a pistol shooter. So we are working hard. We know that the world is change. We want to be part in the new change. ISSF work hard all around 163 countries in all the continent, like this international event like Commonwealth Games, because we have to share the passion of sport. For me, it's passion of shooting. So, but we open the new season in which we offer a big chance to the young generation, because we have to realize that it is their time. Women, equal gender is another mission that we just collect in the last Olympic Games last year in Paris, and this is one reason more that we are in this direction. Of course, we know that the global dimension need new vision. I learned also from this event many important matters. The great speech of the President and the Prime Minister Modi yesterday and the Minister today was really opened me some really interesting message that I can share with my board and working together, because together is our goal also. And this is the reason that really I appreciate to stay here, but ready for the new season. The new season in ISSF is just started.
And Luciano, you know, you're also talking about Olympics and the big events, but if we talk about India, 2025 will be special in shooting because we're hosting the Junior World Cup as well. Yeah. So that push at the junior level is also very, very important to see them at the global level at the Olympic stage. Yeah, great. This year in India, in Delhi, you will host and we will host the Junior World Cup. This is concrete action that after the last year that Delhi in India, the NRA of India, hosted the World Cup final after the great Olympics. So the best athletes in the world was in India. This is one reason more that we also rely on the academy, ISSF Academy. In India, you are working hard and very well. Here in Delhi, in Bhopal, with great attention for the young generation. So, but under the regia of the expertise. So this is very important, opening new season. At Academy is our, not words, but our mission that we are working together. Katie, let's also talk about sports governance. We all know the importance of players and athletes, but sports governance is also equally important. So what do you think of its importance when we talk about creating a winning culture amongst nations?
Great governance is vital in terms of reputation and how you're perceived, whether it's as an international sport or as a country. And I know that, you know, as a past athlete in Olympics and Commonwealth Games, I think of anyone who works in an administration leadership role owes it to be the best they can be off the field when we have that pressure on athletes on the field. So good governance is about getting the right structures, having the right people, and making sure that they're making the right decisions in a transparent way that actually benefits the stakeholders. And sometimes we get that wrong, and it's clear we have examples of that globally. But it is absolutely important for sustained success to have exceptional leadership inside sport at all levels, whether it be internationally, nationally, or at a club level. So, you know, it's so important.
And Luciana, let's get back to shooting. I mean, what steps are being taken to, you know, go with the modernization of the sport, make it more TV-friendly or youth-friendly as well? What is the ISSF doing on that part?
We believe that communication now is necessary, especially for our sport. That is the most safety sport in the world, shooting. Can you imagine how many delays we have for our communication? So, but we open a new season in which we start also to open the door to e-sport. We are, ISSF, together with only 9 international federations together, share the new dimension of e-sport. So a new era in which we want to not forget our story, but include it for the new story and working together for the future. So this is really, really change in very short time, because our federation lose many time in the past. Now we are running, and thanks for this chance that you give me in the name of our ISSF, to show what we are doing. Really, we need, we want, and we are doing this. Can you imagine that we are just ready for the next Olympic LA 28 with all the 15 events, but my dream, our dream, organize an event in this next Olympics in which they compete in the men and women compete in the same competition. Who will be the best, a woman or a man? This is a dream, also for IOC, for our International Olympic Committee. So we are very close for the final proposal, but as you can know, you understand, I am now the majority is women. Also, the minister before talked very well about the equal gender and also more power for the woman in all the sport, especially in our sport. But for the first time in ISSF, we have 4 vice presidents, never before. 2 are men and 2 are women. So this is equal gender. So we open our door, our window for the new season and for realize the dream together.
Katie, another important aspect of sports shaping nations is having the best sports infrastructure as well. So do you think how do you think that investment help nations as well, investing into good sports infrastructure?
And clearly I saw a lot of that last week when I was in India. It is really important to have athletes and communities to have access to world-class facilities that are run really well is really, really, really important. But it is also as important to have fantastic leadership and talent programs that link communities to elite athletes, because it isn't about one or the other. You know, the champion on a world stage came from a small community somewhere. So making sure that that pathway is correct is vital.
And since we're on the topic of infrastructure, we've also officially initiated the bid to host the 2036 Olympics as well in India. So do you think that would possibly be the landmark moment for India?
Well, events like that are the big of the bigs. Now, I'm not an IOC member, so I won't be voting. But from what I've seen, I think that, and what I've heard from the politicians and the brands today, and the excitement for things like pickleball, et cetera, hosting an Olympic Games in India would be absolutely transformational. And with that, hosting the Commonwealth Games in 2030 is a fantastic platform towards that.
More importance to the 2030 Commonwealth Games first from Katie's side. Luciano, also let's talk about the biggest challenges that are there when we talk about, promoting any sport. What do you think are the biggest challenges in terms of promoting a sport like shooting? What have you faced?
Challenge for sport is big. It's open everything in the good and the best way. Of course, all sport can open good connection around the world with different countries. It can support the economy, can support the friendship, the good relation around the world. This is one goal of the sport, all the sport, of course. We know that after we organized this event, that was the Olympics, was a really great chance for the country that hosting this event. So I am sure that India, this year, for the Junior World Cup here in Delhi, can have a big chance, not only for the young athletes, but also for the delegate, for open connection around the world, and show what India are doing. So great, for me, great surprise in these 2 days. Really, again, congratulations to all of you. But it is important to show also in ISSF family. And we will be held next October here in Delhi, and we will see also in the future. And thanks for the academy that you have here in Delhi, that you have in Bhopal. You are working hard and very, very well for all the athletes, No one type, no, all. At the score in the Olympics, Manu, your Olympic champion, was really great.
Luciano, since we're on the topic of an international competition, do you think international competitions impact a country's economic and diplomatic standing as well?
100%. It's a big chance in this, especially in this area around the world. The friendship is very important to realize. Also, the minister talked about the war, about the critical situation around the world. So this is very important. Sport has really true power, and we are ready. We are ready to cooperate, to working together for help and for the peace, for the good relation. This is our goal. It is in our story, in our spirit, in our heart, in our mind. But now we have to do. This is our time.
Well, Luciano and Katie, thank you so much for being here with us and, gracing this Global Business Summit. It's been very, very inspiring to hear you and understand how actually sports can shape nations and craft champions as well. So thank you so much for being here. Katie, any closing words from you?
Well, what I can say, if I continue on to see the growth and the transformation of sport that's happening in India, and one of those goals is to be a top 10 nation at an Olympic Games, you're on track to moving towards that goal.
Thank you so much. A huge round of applause, please, for Luciano and Katie.
ये नया फिनटेक है, एंकर के सवाल से पहले अपना आंसर चालू कर दिया।
नहीं, मैं निकुंज आपको बताता हूँ, सेल्फी का जमाना आया और मुझे समझ में नहीं आता था कि लोग मेरी फोटो ले रहे हैं या मैं उनके साथ ले रहा हूँ, बिकॉज लॉट ऑफ टाइम आई यूज टू बी रियली जॉयस कि कोई जिसको मैं बहुत ऑनर करता हूँ वो मेरे साथ फोटो ले रहा है, तो मैं जो पॉइंटर देता हूँ इसलिए कि ये हीरो है।
तो मैं फिर ऐसी सेल्फी लूंगा।
थैंक यू।
ओके, हीरो तो सामने बैठे हैं।
Oh yes. Oh yes. And in fact, जब हम smartphone generation is ending now in the world, more or less के smartphone plateaued है. The biggest app of smartphone that changed the world is actually FaceTime. You'll say क्यों? क्योंकि FaceTime करने के लिए स्टीव जॉब्स ने फ्रंट कैमरा लगाया, नहीं तो नोकिया एज तक सारे बैक कैमरा थे, तो FaceTime ऐप के लिए फ्रंट कैमरा आया, उससे फिर लोगों ने सेल्फ फोटो खींची, उससे सारी दुनिया सेल्फी में हो गई, चाहे मोदी जी इलॉन मस्क से मिले या ट्रम्प किसी से मिले, अब सब लोग सेल्फी करते हैं। तो मेरी नजर में फेस टाइम इज द ऐप ऑफ स्मार्टफोन एज विच इम्पैक्टेड मोस्ट इन द वर्ल्ड।
नाउ everyone in this room I can vouch for has used Paytm somewhere or the other. Please raise your hands those who have not used. देखिए एक भी नहीं है। That is the power of a brand called Paytm. And in India, and frankly, last 15 years, very few brands have got created which are at a global standard. And one of them is actually Paytm. Now, Vijay, Paytm has been in news. Good news, bad news. So what should we start with? The good news or the bad news?
As always, a business guy will say, give me the bad news first. So bad news first, if there is. And I think now you're calling on that question. मेरा ये मानना है कि कोई भी बैड न्यूज़ नहीं होती जब तक कि वो आपको ख़त्म ना कर दे, फिनिश ना कर दे. What doesn't kills you makes you stronger philosophy tells me that there is genuinely a lesson of future resilience and future opportunity that hides behind so-called bad news. And I can say that there was a lot of lesson to learn and there was an obligation to lesson to learn. In fact, मैं अपनी तरफ से एक और बात बोलता हूँ, यदि हम वो lesson learn नहीं करते जो हमारे lessons जैसे हमने पिछले साल में learn किए, तो शायद हम वो जो अपनी ambition रखते हैं, बहुत बड़ी ambition रखते हैं कि $100 billion कंपनी बनेंगे, इंडिया से एक global कंपनी बनेंगे, वो achieve नहीं होता. So in a quasi uncomfortable way, I can even also say that was a nice thing that I got a lesson which made me survive and learn. So better to learn, and better late than never, and better that it happened at this early days.
So this is the first time anyone is interacting with you on this large forum after all those regulatory problems have happened. So this is technically your first big interview after the regulatory problems. So in simple terms, can we assume that all the regulatory problems which had happened, which were openly discussed on all the forums, are they over or it is still work in progress?
I'm very hopeful that they are conclusively concluded, but at the same point of time, the direction and the path and the things that have to be done, that is behind us.
How did you manage to waive that problem period? What changes you made at Paytm? Because you've sold some businesses, you've changed some business models, and now you are on path to profitability again. What are the changes you did?
So I wrote it on Facebook, which is, I don't use Facebook much, but I wrote it because वहाँ पे बहुत कम लोग follow करते हैं मेरे को, या फिर मैं bother नहीं करता क्या reaction आते हैं. Every pain has a message to deliver. Once the message is delivered, the pain recedes. If I was ready to accept that there is something inside it, which is something that we have to correct, I have to correct, we have to, and I think owning up that was the first and biggest lesson of the time. It included that, number one, we were doing too many things. We were mixing up a few things versus many things which were not concurrent, coherence, and so on. So we pruned, cut, or made money in a way by exiting many of the businesses and sorting out that I want to go back to the focus, go back to the fundamentals, and keep at it till the time period we are not just big, but a very big as a industry player and a sizable player. Obviously, in this kind of movement, we lost some of the market share. We lost some of the, let's say, consumer love that we could have and we were expecting to garner. But at the same point of time, I said, the earning back, the winning back will be the success of it, and the success will be that we are back with a number and market share, which is good for us to have in the long term. So more or less, I'd say the lesson learned was that the regulatory businesses are compliance first businesses. We should and we better take care of that. And second lesson was that you have to have an organization where the compliance officer is not a separate person. The business person speaks a compliance language. So I upgraded our governance, I upgraded our compliance, I made the organization understand that it is compliance first. All the businesses that were so-called not compliance requirement, like commerce, like many other things, we sort of said that, let's not mix it. Organization has one culture.
Paytm has several businesses. UPI, which all of us identify with, Paytm Karo. Then there is lending, which is the heart of your profitability.
Yeah.
Then you are in the business of wealth management, insurance, and there was another business which was an events which you've sold to Zomato. Am I describing Paytm business model correctly?
Yeah, bilkul.
Okay. What would be the future growth businesses for Paytm? Which are the businesses which will grow and which are the businesses which could contract?
So very clearly, payment is our foundation. So we believe that payment standalone can make profit. And that's a big statement. I would rather say that seeing what there is an expectation based on the sort of incentive plan that we saw the government announce, that there is an MDR that is coming. So that will be a big boost to the payment, and payment inherently can become profitable, I think, if we go towards that path. So payment is critical, profitable by standalone, scale. कितने मिलियन लोग हैं हमारे पास? हमारा मानना ऐसा है कि हम 200-250 मिलियन लोगों को ये देश में सर्व कर पाएंगे जो हमारे प्लेटफॉर्म को यूज करेंगे. मैं मार्केट शेयर से ज़्यादा वो जो अच्छी क्वालिटी के 25 करोड़ लोग हैं उनको चाहूँगा अपने प्लेटफॉर्म पे. एंड I can say that we are privileged that we continue to have them on our platform, because let's say even if something churn happened, it did not happen of the good quality customer. So first of all, payment is big. Credit is, like you said, distribution of credit. We are recalibrating. We have added FLDG somewhere. We've removed the distribution somewhere, and so on and so forth. Will remain one of the key driver of profit. And it stays, it continues. And what we are not focused, and after that wealth, I don't have to say, India's stock market is inviting many, many domestic investors, and this is pride of India. I'd rather say after some days, it could be very clear that after payment revolution in India, the pride of India will be the number of demat accounts and the amount of effort that happened in wealth space, so to say. Mutual fund sahi hai event, let's say. Insurance and many other things, we would primarily keep them as business as usual. We will not put a lot of effort on it. Payment, credit, wealth, that's my next 2 years plan.
When you went public in the DRHP, which is applied to the SEBI, I'm breaking it for viewers, you said that हमें पता नहीं हम पैसा कब बनाएंगे. We don't know when we would be profitable. Now you're saying that we are committed to walk on the path of profitability. So when will you declare profits?
Very interesting. I remember that, and I remember going on TV also. और मेरे को बताया गया था कि देखिए आपने जो लिखा है वही वर्ड बोलेंगे, क्योंकि उससे डिफरेंट तो आप वैसे ही नहीं बोल सकते और कर भी नहीं सकते, तो आपको वही लिखना चाहिए. तो true to the uncomfortable statement written, we've had one of the reason कि हमने पिछले 2-3 साल में profit बनाए नहीं. At the same point in time, I can tell you very happily that internally the team and the kind of effort in the business we've done, we are clearly committed in the next quarter to deliver profit, and we have made a public statement about it. Thank you. And I believe that the best benchmark of profit will be PAT and the free cash that the company generates. I am completely committed to deliver a PAT growing company, and that I don't see very far. Like I said, in the next quarter, we have already called out, and next year, let's see what happens.
Great. When you went public on day one, there were a lot of yes and no about the valuations. The stock came down, then it stabilized. Then there was that ugly volatility when the stock actually below 400 rupees, and now it has come back. How do you react to it as a promoter from wealth going to couple of billion, coming down by a few billion? आपके stock पे काफी memes बन रही थी. कई लोग कई बातें बोल रहे थे. How did you take to that period of that crisis?
मैं कंपनी को अपनी डॉटर की तरह समझता हूँ. मैं उतना एसोसिएटेड और लिंक्ड हूँ जितना एक पेरेंट अपनी डॉटर के लिए केयरिंग एंड लविंग होता है. एट द सेम पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम वो मैं ये नहीं देखता कि उससे मेरे को डिफेंड होगा या फिर कुछ गेन मिलेगा. डॉटर को देते ही हो आप, डॉटर से कुछ लेते नहीं हो. तो आप अगर नोटिस करो तो मेरी लाइफस्टाइल कभी ना पहले और बाद में कुछ भी चेंज नहीं हुई. आई डू बिलीव दैट यू शुड.
आपके शेयर होल्डर्स की लाइफस्टाइल चेंज हो गई थी जिन्होंने 1900 में शेयर लिया था.
आई टोटली एग्री एंड द बेस्ट थिंग आई कैन डू, एंड मैंने अपनी तरफ से पब्लिक स्टेटमेंट भी दिया था कि मैं कभी कंपनी से कुछ एक्स्ट्रा शेयर ये सब कुछ नहीं लूंगा जब तक कि सबके पैसे यानी कि मार्केट लिस्टिंग प्राइस पे ना आ जाए. एंड देयर मे बी मैनी रीजंस के उस टाइम पे क्या प्राइस मिला और आज के टाइम पे क्या प्राइस चल रहा है. देयर कैन बी मैनी रीजन. इंटरनली वी आर कमिटेड टू डिलीवर अ, like I said, PAT or free cash growing company, and I believe that even though it could be a time-bound activity, but it is inevitably to happen. The market opportunity of India, financial services, Paytm opportunity is huge. I'm all in on Paytm, and I won't let this not happen by any measure that के हम कभी क्वेश्चन करें. So वो कमिटमेंट रहेगा. और मेरा मानना है कि अब हमारे को रास्ता बिजनेस मॉडल क्लियर है. एंड लाइक यू सेड इट इन द DRHP वी वर सेइंग वी डोंट नो व्हेन वी विल बी प्रॉफिटेबल, एंड नाउ आई एम सेइंग दैट वी आर हियर इन द नेक्स्ट क्वार्टर एंड क्वार्टर आफ्टर दैट. सो हियर इट इज. It's not very far. It could have been a little bit frothy in terms of many regions in the market of opportunity guessing or opportunity or size guessing, and then market itself takes corrections. आपने देखा होगा पर्सनल लोन के अंदर, अनसिक्योर क्रेडिट के अंदर बहुत कुछ हुआ, फिर हमारी कंपनी के अंदर बहुत कुछ हुआ. तो मेरा मानना ऐसा है कि whatever has happened has made us stronger and better. Now we are for good committed and clearly seeing the path towards a large profit.
So take a leap of faith on Vijay Shekhar Sharma. This time he will deliver.
मैं तो ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि actions speak louder than words. So instead of saying it, I'll say that we will deliver it.
Fantastic, fantastic. And you know, I just want to set the context here that very few companies essentially have managed to really go through this curve of changes, disruption, reaching customer satisfaction levels, going through the regulatory ups and downs, and then really arrive as a winner. So I'll put a very basic question for the audience here. A company is judged on a curve. Startup, then they become young, then they become mature, and then they reach at the stage of decay. Is Paytm still at a startup stage where high growth, exceptionally strong compounding, that is ahead of Paytm?
Actually, if you see the base numbers, they are phenomenally small. So there is high growth inevitably. India intersection, financial services intersectional, the kind of customer we are serving, there is inevitability. I would rather say startup में bottom line की चिंता नहीं करते, equity से पैसा raise करते रहते हैं. और mature company में जैसे होता है ना, पहले खुद कमाएं फिर दुल्हन लाएं, उस तरह का हो जाता है कि आप पहला अपना पैसा खुद कमाएं फिर उसको इन्वेस्ट करें, तो वो मैच्योर कंपनी होती है. तो स्टार्टअप और मैच्योर कंपनी में ग्रोथ से एक ठीक है, वो एक सॉर्ट ऑफ बाई प्रोडक्ट हो जाता है. बट मैं कहूँगा कि मैच्योर कंपनी बहुत अच्छी ग्रो करती है, और मैच्योर कंपनी वो होती है जो अपने पैसे जो इन्वेस्ट करने होते हैं खुद अर्न करती हैं. सो हमने जैसा आपने देखा होगा, जो we raised about $1 billion and we have more than that in the cash in the hand, is inherently a statement that we are here to invest also with the money that exists from the business, not necessarily just the equity money, so to say. And there goes opportunity also. पहले हमारे कंपनी का अपना बॉटम लाइन आएगा, फिर वो उस बॉटम लाइन को हम फर्दर इन्वेस्ट करेंगे. ये एक स्टार्टअप नहीं करती. ये एक टिपिकली स्टार्टअप करती है कि मैं एक्स्ट्रा फंड रेज करूं सो दैट द मार्केट में ग्रो करूं या इन्वेस्ट करूं. मैं कहूँगा कि हम अपनी खून पसीने की मिलेगी तो यारो खाएंगे वो वाला, और लगता है कि हम अपनी मेहनत से बनाएंगे और उसको इन्वेस्ट करेंगे और मार्केट बड़ा करेंगे.
Fantastic. So I'll just close with one final question, something I've been wanting to seek an answer. So I'll be slightly selfish because इसका आंसर मैं जानना चाहता हूँ. And I'll put a context here, which is that every 10 years there is a wave which comes. When first time GPS came, it put the map industry on the back foot.
Correct.
Then when internet came, it started the revolution of Amazon.
Correct.
Then when smartphone came, Paytm was born. Uberization of the economy happened. Now AI has come.
जी.
What will change in the short term because of AI in India? What will change in the medium term? What will change in the long term?
ये मेरा being a technology पर्सन ये मेरे लिए बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है कि एज ए इंडिया वी कैन यूज़ AI एट ए मैस स्केल, पॉपुलेशन स्केल. AI को थोड़ा सा मैं स्टेटमेंट देना चाहता हूँ एज ऑफ नाउ. अभी हम लोग कमांड लाइन पे कुछ चैट बॉक्स में लिखते हैं एंड उसका कुछ आउटपुट टेक्स्ट में आ जाता है. तो ये बिल्कुल इंटरनेट जो बहुत लोग जानते होंगे 94-95 में था, उस तरह का इंटरनेट हुआ. जबकि रिवोल्यूशन ऑफ इंटरनेट आया उसके 10 साल और 20 साल बाद. मतलब हम बात कर रहे थे 2005 में और 2015 में. तो एक तरीके से अगर हम अभी देखें तो AI जो अभी है वो प्रॉमिसिंग है. मतलब इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बन रही है लेकिन इलेक्ट्रिसिटी के यूज केस क्लियर नहीं है कि कितने सारे और होंगे और इनॉर्मस यूज केसेस हैं. उसी तरीके से AI के अंदर जो सबसे पहले दिख रहा है वो सारे जॉब्स जो टेक्स्ट आउटपुट की तरफ से सॉर्ट आउट हो सकता है वो खत्म हो जाएंगे या फिर लिमिटेड हो जाएंगे. मतलब उनकी जॉब की ग्रोथ रुक जाएगी and there will be more efficacy and efficiency of the agent who would be handling the text. Now this could be the job profile or skill from any kind of jobs that you are talking about text output wise. But the great thing will happen that AI will become the power and tool to give you more power and tool to grow better in the. So लोगों की skill enhance हो जाएगी, efficacy enhance हो जाएगी, productivity बढ़ जाएगी. The job which was अब जैसा हम लोग सब एग्जाम्पल लेते ही हैं, इफ यू रिमेंबर कि जब ATM आया था तब लोगों ने सोचा ATM, आई एम टॉकिंग सिटी बैंक जो पहले बार ATM था कि बैंक के ब्रांचों का क्या होगा. आपको लगता है बैंक ब्रांच कम हुए थे, ज़्यादा हुए थे? ज़्यादा हुए थे. इसी तरीके से जब इंटरनेट आया तो लोगों को लगा कि अब तो ऑफिसेज कम हो जाएंगे. कम हुए, ज़्यादा हुए? तो प्रोडक्टिविटी इन्हेंसमेंट एनहेंसेज द जॉब प्रोस्पेक्ट ऑफ द इकोनॉमी एंड दिस इज अ इनक्रेडिबल प्रोडक्टिविटी इन्हेंसमेंट टूल. पीपल विल मूव फ्रॉम अ स्मॉल स्किल टू अ लार्जर स्किल. पहले आप और मैं जैसे अभी हम लोग अपने आप को DIY ट्रेडिंग करने की बात कर लेते हैं. पहले ट्रेडिंग करने के लिए हमें एक एडवाइजर, ब्रोकर, ये सारा स्ट्रक्चर चाहिए था. तो इमेंस इंडस्ट्री ग्रोथ, इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ, इंक्लूडिंग एंड नॉट लिमिटेड टू पीपल हु आर अंडर स्किल्ड और लो स्किल्ड गोइंग टूवर्ड्स हायर स्किल. सो शॉर्ट टर्म में लगेगा कि ये एक तरीके से कुछ कहीं ये जॉब लॉस तो ना कर दे, और लॉन्ग टर्म में होगा कि वाओ हाउ आर वी लिविंग विदाउट इट. सो मेरी नज़र में चाहे जैसा आपने बोला कि मैप के बाद GPS कंपनीज का कुछ नहीं हुआ, बट लेकिन मैप के बाद तो इतने सारे और बिजनेस बन गए ना जिसके कारण हम बेटर लाइफ जी पा रहे हैं. अब आप मैप के कारण कॉमर्स देखते हो, मैप के कारण ऊबर देखते हो, मैप के कारण आपकी जो दसियों हजारों इंडस्ट्री जो बनी उसके बाद वो पहले एग्जिस्ट नहीं करती थी.
Fantastic. So before I wrap, I'm going to stand up and say something about Mr. Vijay Shekhar, which is that what is that one thing which I have over the years seen with Vijay Bhai, it's about you only, which has differentiated from others. It is not vision, it is not wisdom, it is not his lifestyle. I think one thing is grit. His ability to never say never. His ability to really stand, fall, get up, run. And that is a differentiating factor which I guess has made what looked like a small company a global benchmark to reckon with. The Prime Minister himself, when he went to France on his last visit, UPI use kara tha, Paytm use kara tha. Thank you very much. And when people ask him what to do, he just says one simple thing: believe in India and be gritty by nature. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very generous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon to all. So friends, clean energy has broken through. $2 trillion worldwide was invested just last year. Climate action clearly isn't charity. Investment only reaches levels like these because of commercial and economic self-interest. And India is a case in point. India is a solar superpower, reaching 100 gigawatts in record time, putting the country on a path to meet Prime Minister Modi's ambitious 500 gigawatt target for clean energy. Sharing these world-leading lessons through the International Solar Alliance. Indian companies, and more like them, see huge potential and profits. Their investment means cheaper energy prices for other companies across Indian industries, and consumers shielded from the worst impacts of highly volatile global energy crises that fuel inflationary pressures. On this clean energy base, India can build a wider clean industry and manufacturing boom, meaning more opportunity, more jobs, and rising living standards. More energy access, more for more people, all around the country. The transition is inevitable. The dividends are simply too great to ignore. Every day we see new developments. Take, for example, recent tenders for energy where renewables are already competitive with coal. And it's only a matter of time until they outcompete any and every fossil fuel. Or take the recent unveiling of India's largest utility-scale battery energy storage system by BSES. This project will soon serve 12,000 low-income customers with continuous electricity supply, even in the event of technical faults or grid failures. That's money in the pockets of entrepreneurs and investors, and electricity powering homes of ordinary people, boosting living standards and opportunities. Just think of the education and health outcomes as lighting, connectivity, and refrigeration improve. Then scale that up by many millions and calculate the nationwide productivity gains that will help power economic growth. Not to mention jobs and higher incomes for people that want their communities to breathe clean air in homes that are warm in winter and cool in summer. In 2023, the renewable energy sector alone created over 1 million jobs here in India. That's 7% of the global renewable energy workforce worldwide here in India. And this is just the start. New manufacturing and onshoring supply chains, particularly in sectors like electric vehicles, will create millions more jobs, driving economic growth and shared prosperity. Vast profits for those who act quickly, and development for everyone around them. This is especially the case in India, because India is laying the groundwork for a massive economic surge. This is a country with a young population. They're highly motivated to work for a better life, to build resilience in their communities and local economies, to grow the pie for themselves and for those that invest in them. GDP per capita is rising and will only continue to keep increasing. People are determined to share in the benefits of this prosperity. The countries and companies that invest early and decisively in the infrastructure of a renewable future and in the education and skills empowering people to join in this prosperity will reap the biggest rewards. You have a valuable partner in your government who understands this well. Now is the time to redouble your efforts. If others take longer to follow, that only means that when they decide to catch up, they will do so following your success, buying your products, paying royalties for your intellectual property, setting the course for industrialization through decarbonization, ensuring a future that is not only cleaner, but also more prosperous and more secure. And it's essential that your new national climate plan, or nationally determined contribution, sets you on this course. While it's true that the transition is inevitable, who benefits the most is not. Those that are most vulnerable and have contributed least to the causes of the climate crisis have vast appetite to step up climate action, but simply lack the financial means to do so. This year, my own organization and many others will redouble our efforts to help identify and unleash the international finance needed to invest in both the energy transition and building climate resilience. Making sure the finance targets we agreed in Baku are a baseline, not an end line. And those that need finance the most get more and sooner. We'll also work with our Brazilian colleagues and others to find ways to lower the cost of capital for the investment we need, building on the insights and inputs of the Indian G20 presidency. And we will work to ensure more countries follow India's lead in prioritizing life, unleashing the power of institutions, communities, and individuals to protect the environment and promote a circular economy, as championed by Prime Minister Modi. Every country, and indeed every person on the planet, will benefit from the prosperity you create and the climate change risks we all avoid. India is in an incredible position. I urge you to harness the full potential of that position for the benefit of all Indians and for people everywhere. I thank you.
Mr. Simon Style, for your profound address today. In fact, your perspective on climate action and economic development has been truly enlightening. Ladies and gentlemen, let's now move on to our next session of the day, and this one's going to be on energy. Well, energy is not just an industry, it's a strategic pillar of global geopolitics. The evolving energy landscape is redefining power dynamics, not just in India, not just in Southeast Asia, but across the world. And join us to explore these crucial shifts and trends is Arvind Tikku, entrepreneur and investor and founder of the AT Capital Group. He is in conversation with our very own Aisha Faridi, national editor, ET Now. Let's put our hands together in welcoming them.
Thank you, all of you.
may I just request all the people on the left to please take their seats. Hi, Arvind.
Hi.
Hi. So we're here to talk about energy, geopolitics, and how we're going to explore and maneuver the new world order. But let's start with the very basics. When we talk about energy itself, I think there's, it's almost like technology, right? It's so fast evolving, yet we are so still into fossil fuels. Let's break it down for us. How many forms of energy? What does India consume? What are the myths and what are the stats?
Well, first, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me. If you really look at the energy landscape in totality, energy has always been not just a commodity, but has been an instrument of geopolitics forever. Yeah. It's just that we forgot about it post-Cold War because obviously we had a long period of peace with, I would say, less conflicts on planet Earth. And now with the conflict, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the whole energy discourse has come up again because now we see actually energy being used as an instrument of diplomacy or as an instrument of geopolitics. So the broader frame of energy from India context should be broken into two aspects. Number one would be the import of fossil fuels, which is crude that we do. India imports about 5.5 million barrels of oil a day. We are the third largest importer. And then India needs electricity for manufacturing, electricity for agriculture, electricity for homes. And today, if you look at the Indian electricity landscape, we literally only consume 2% of energy. Last year, we produced 2% of energy from imported LNG. And although we have 30,000 megawatts of installed capacity in India.
So when you say energy, you're talking about
gas.
Crude oil.
About gas, yeah. Even though we have about 30,000 megawatts of installed capacity in gas, we realistically used only 17% of that, which is 2% of the energy mix in the electricity space. And the reason primarily was obviously gas prices, and we have a price-sensitive customer. So as far as import of crude and products, import of crude primarily is concerned because India is the fourth largest refining capacity in the world. So while India is an importer of crude, India is an exporter of products. And the opportunity for becoming such a large exporter of products primarily to Europe started with the fact that post-Ukraine conflict, Europe, which used to get about 40% of their gas from Russia, those chains all got disrupted. And all of a sudden, they needed to import from LNG from America, which obviously is much more expensive from dry gas than dry gas that was coming out of Russia, which now we see, how it's affecting Europe. It's effectively, we see deindustrialization of Europe happening at a pace which has never happened post-World War II. So, and that created an opportunity for Indian refining capacities to export more to Europe. As far as the linkage of energy between Russia and Europe is concerned, Russia used to export roughly 8 million barrels of oil and products. When the disruptions happened with the European supplies, the molecules that India used to buy from the Middle East, those were targeted by the Europeans. So as India, obviously our leadership did a fantastic job in making sure that India stays secure. And those disruptions, when they happened, what India used to buy from Middle East moved at a premium to the European markets. And obviously we didn't have a choice but to go and buy from the Russians. So there you see how the landscape changed because of geopolitics. And this has an effect which will be transformational changes in supply chains of products. It will be transformational in security going forward. Just to give an example, China used to have its 70% of energy come from South China Sea. Post-war, the pipelines that are being built or have been built between Russia and China gives Chinese manufacturing a huge edge for next decades to go. Because they get cheap Russian gas, they get it on a pipeline, which never has been the case before. And dry gas effectively is what? It's the cheapest form of fossil fuel and the most environmental friendly. It's not that polluting as LNG is. So while we know that 30% of manufacturing is controlled by China today, imagine now Chinese having access to energy on land, which obviously removes a lot of threat on the South China Sea because the disruptions can't happen like they would. These changes will stay and they'll have an effect on, on economies, on world, for decades to come.
Quite interesting. A lot of food for thought. But let's begin with one of the points that you made earlier, that, when it comes to consumer prices, when you talk about India, for instance, petrol and diesel are such price-sensitive commodities that they can make or break economies and governments. It's that consumer angle. Tell me, how do those dynamics actually play out?
So we've seen the dynamics play out on India. Our energy bill, what we import every year, is about $150 billion. And that has a huge effect on our current account deficit. That has a huge effect on our rupee-dollar exchange. So for us, having low energy prices, which means having diversification of energy sources that can come from, whatever works cheapest for us, and that's what our petroleum minister says, I'm floating tenders, who gives me the cheapest energy, I'm going to go and buy from there. But the fact of the matter is that we saw when Biden administration recently left and put 300 vessels that were on high seas on sanctions, we know there were vessels offshore India that couldn't be docked because of sanctions. So these disruptions, Indian economy is going to be exposed to. The key is how do we manage them at a, at a world scale.
And what tools do we have to try and maneuver this?
Sorry, what was the question?
No. And what tools, I said, do we have to maneuver this ever-changing, dynamic, volatile world?
As far as crude is concerned, we have to work within the framework that we have out there, which is we can't affect the policies of Europeans vis-a-vis, for example, the sanctions, right? We can't affect the policies of Americans vis-a-vis sanctions, although, as I said, the leadership has done a fantastic job convincing Americans that if India is not able to import and we have 1.4 billion people to take care of, and you have taken the barrels which India was buying from Middle East, how do you expect us to, feed 1.4 billion people or keep an economy of 1.4 billion people growing? So obviously that plays a role. Diplomacy plays a role, obviously. And then we've seen that inflation in the Western economies was high, and now we see a higher interest rate environment. It doesn't work for them as well, because if energy prices stay high, inflation goes higher. And as much as we have heard either the Biden administration promise Europeans 50 billion cubic meters of gas, or President Trump saying, drill, baby, drill, the fact of the matter is that they don't really control, the production of this of crude. We have OPEC. OPEC keeps an eye on balance of demand and supply. They want to maintain a certain price to keep industry viable. We have American petroleum industry completely controlled by the private sector. We saw what happened when prices came down. The finance literally dried up for them, and they want to keep prices at a profitable level as well. So while they might want to influence the production of more, more crude oil, the fact of the matter is that economics is going to sit at the bedrock of it. So I'm not quite sure that energy, you can just drill, baby, drill, and they will be able to drill. But yeah, those are the dynamics within which we have to work.
So that's that on fossil fuels as we know it. What about the whole energy transition, the world moving to green energy? And the bigger questions whether fossil fuel is going to die down, or are we going to continue to consume both? Where is the world headed when it comes to energy transition?
Well, the notion that fossil fuels are going to dry down over next even 30, 40 years, I think is a misnomer. I don't think as yet, until we have a breakthrough in new technology. So we see fossil fuels staying where they are, at least till 2040, maybe even in case of India, it's going to be 2050, 2060. As far as the electricity generation is concerned, obviously we see renewable playing an important role, and in terms of India playing a very important role. But Indian renewable space, the bedrock of Indian renewable has been imports from China primarily. Chinese control the 90% of EV and PV on planet Earth, technology-wise and manufacturing-wise. You just can't change these things overnight. It's going to take time. How do you compete with an industry that's spent billions and billions of dollars by subsidies and has grown where it is and expect to change that overnight? We see, so I think for world to go green or for India to have affordable energy, China is going to play a role, and a substantial role, at least in the foreseeable future. So the transition is going to happen because in India, transition is going to happen because it's going to be demand-driven. We need to have cheap energy. Today, renewable energy is not just green; it's profitable. It's the cheapest energy electricity India can produce, and not only is it the cheapest, it's the quickest to the grid. You want to start a coal plant today, it's going to take you 5, 6, 7 years to build it. You want to have a green energy project up and running, it's going to be literally 18 to 22 months. So India has done a great job in investing in the grid, making sure that the energy intermittency of renewable energy is handled, and expansion of grid is happening. So renewable energy is going to play a very, very important role in case of India.
Okay. We seem like we're on the right path, though.
Sorry?
I said we seem like we're on the right path, though.
Yes, we are.
But thank you, all of you, for taking part in this session, and thank you, Arvind.
Thank you. Thank you
Valuable
very much.
insights.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. A lot of things are changing when you talk about the push towards green energy, being able to talk about renewables. Those conversations are clearly going on. And the transition that we are talking about, this move from fossil fuels, it isn't something that's going to happen in a rush, and we are hearing more and more of that. So thank you, Mr. Arvind Tiku and Aisha Faridi, for conducting that conversation. Meanwhile, we're ready to move on. And this entire piece that we are tracking, this is about going beyond influence. We're talking about the future of the creator economy. This creator economy is getting more and more interesting because it's a level playing field. There is a lot of democratization when it comes to creativity. And this is about the world, and we talk about globalization, though deglobalization is almost as much on the plate. We do talk about creativity bringing us all together in the world. But even as we track that piece, we've got this video that we'd like to play for you. This is about the company that our next guest comes from. It's called Xshore. And what is the future of the creator economy looking like from the Xshore perspective? Let's see it in this video.
The ocean, the beginning of all life. Today, we are witnessing the ocean's destruction. We face an urgent situation that demands for a change in our thinking and actions. We need to stop damaging our life support system. United, we have the power and knowledge to restore the nature and give it back to our children. Let's start our sustainable journey here, today, together.
You can live out of the sea, but we have to treat it nice. We have to be respectful, and we have to live in collaboration. That's why I'm making the electric boats. And I think this is what it takes to let Mother Earth help us and get the sea back to how it should be, full of life.
Exshore was built on 3 pillars: design, technology, and sustainability. And we have kept building on those. And I'm proud to say today, all 3 is deeply ingrained in the company's DNA.
It all made sense to think of the energy efficiency. To be on the water without noise and fumes would just create the ultimate experience.
Ridiculous. I'm sorry.
Our boats have always been about more than just traveling from point A to point B. It is meant to be a social boat where we can hang out, we can meet up with friends, and we can really interact with the water.
We all need to react now. It is the small steps together that will make the big impact.
When it comes to design, we are at an inflection point. Technology is making it all possible, and we're talking about entrepreneurship, pushing boundaries almost on every count. So to explore this kind of entrepreneurship, let's welcome on stage our next guest. Mr. Konrad Bergstrom is joining us. He's founder and president of Exshore, and in conversation with him, my dear colleague at ET Now, Sumita Karir, back on stage. Welcome both.
Thanks, Vikram, for that introduction. And thank you very much, Konrad, for taking the time out. By the way, I'm absolutely loving how you've put your outfit together. And that perhaps is also the essence of the companies that you founded, right? You worked on an electronics company as well, which is called Urban Years. And ladies and gentlemen, Marshall as well, the electronics company, that was also his company. So he's the man behind all the design excellence and engineering that you're seeing. So huge round of applause for Konrad. By the way, some really, really shocking statistics, in that presentation that we just saw, and definitely would love to have the company venture here in India as well, given the kind of pollution levels, marine pollution levels that we're hearing of. Konrad, let me first begin with your journey. I believe that you were selling candy and hot dogs on the beach as a 7-year-old. So how did your appetite for business and taking risks and building different businesses, whether it is in electronics and now into electronic boats that make no noise, really begin? Did you have a background in business? Because from what I learned, that your mother was a theater director.
Yeah, I didn't come from a rich family. We had to work, and I started very early. And I usually say that the more I train, the more luck I have. But, I mean, it's all about experience. And I've been able to go from different tech companies and now into a boat company. But, of course, we work with sustainability, design, and technology. And that's just makes it very, very strong.
All right. And, when we were talking about Marshall backstage, why did you decide to let go of that business?
Well, there is always a lot of political stuff when you're running a business, and my dream was to change that space. Marshall was amplificators that started in 1962, and they were the father of rock and roll sound, the distant sound. I was the person in 2009 who saw the opportunity to not only make products for the people who was on stage, actually for the hundreds of thousands or million fans who were standing in the crowd and loved the brand. And I came up with making the headphones and speakers, sold 20 million products in 10 years. And, I'm a guy that believes that I can do a lot of different things. I have a full box with ideas. And I felt that I didn't have that much more to give to that. It's already up and running. It's a new team doing it. And, 3 weeks ago, it was sold to Hongshan Capital. Sorry, it's China. But it was at $1.1 billion. So it's my first unicorn. And then I'm more eager. I have food on my table. I have a lot of money. But I'm more eager to do the next. What can I do? And I think sustainability is something that I really have in my heart. And I believe that I can do companies that inspire. And I take it very seriously, the climate change. At the same time, I don't believe that we should go back and live in a cave. I believe that we can do products and invent technology that we are living in collaboration with Mother Earth. And that's very important to me, to not take more resources than we need.
Absolutely, and that is the need of the hour, and I do hope that many more business leaders and startup founders do think like you, keeping sustainability at the core of their business offerings. But let's go back to the boats business, the electric boats business. So you have Elon Musk on one side, in the car side of the business, and in the boat side of the business, it's you, Conrad. So why did you actually decide to come up with e-boats?
Well, So a little background is that we're a family from the sea. We've been working with fishing and lived out at sea. And I was a professional surfer, and I could see the sea change. And I didn't like that, I couldn't go out and get my dinner. I couldn't find the fishes as easy as it used to be when I was a small kid. And this is in the mid-90s. And boats were getting very fast and very loud. And when I was diving, I thought I was going to be run over, but the boat could be 2 kilometers away because the density of the water transports sound much longer. So with these problems, I went to my father and my grandpa that are both engineers and innovators, and I said, this is fucked up. We can't live like this, and we need to find a solution. And we started to discuss what it could be, from propeller technologies to the drivetrain. And we quite quickly came to the conclusion that electricity is quiet, it's much more efficient, and it's clean. So it was like the perfect solution. But at the time, there were bottlenecks with the battery technology. There were bottlenecks with mixing water and electricity. But now the technology came up. So in 2012, when I saw the Tesla S, I took that idea out, and I said, I have to build a prototype. That was finished in 2017. And it didn't work at all according to the Excel sheet. It was going to do 25 knots. It did 12. It was going to go 10 nautical miles. It did 800 meters. But the experience to get out on the water without noise and fumes was just what we call the power of silence. And I said, I need to throw money onto this. This is just too good not to execute.
So it's a fabulous product because it's also keeping with the sustainability narrative that definitely is the need of the hour. It is also silent, and it has a great design as well. What's the kind of demand that you're really seeing with respect to this? Don't you think that this is too much of a niche product? Give us a sense of the kind of demand and interest that you're seeing from the Swedish government. And you're present in 3 continents, right? So give us a bit of detailing about that as well.
Well, we see demand from all over the world. We've been riding the wave of sustainability, but actually it's the experience when you get out on the water and you have an acceleration that is so much better than the other boats. So it's a combination of the experience and the sustainability that is driving the demand. And Our biggest market is the US, but we're doing very well in Europe as well. But we're open for India. We work with NEOM in the UAE, and we're just about going from a startup to a scale up. So our first factory, X-Shore 1, is built, but it's modular, and we can bring that blueprint to other parts of the world and build boats here as well.
But do you plan to go beyond boats at some point in time to make it more mainstream?
I mean, we are looking at different developments, but right now we're focusing on growing the business.
The world can gain significantly from that.
Sorry?
The world can significantly look at gaining from that if we have multiple players within the sustainability ecosystem.
Can you imagine when you're going to a lot of the hotels, you're getting picked up by a speedboat, that it's a terrible trip to the hotel for the experience. Imagine if your trip could start at the dock and it's all quiet, but you have the wind in your hair. It's like sailing without wind. And that is what we're selling.
Okay. Now, Conrad, I have to talk about one of the things that you have mentioned about building your company. You said in one of the interviews that you had to sleep in your car after your company went to the wall, and that being in love with your business is a peril. Why?
No, but this is in 2004, and I was working with lifestyle and fashion and snowboards and stuff. And I was in love with the business, and that business went bankrupt. So I woke up one day in my car with my dog, and basically everyone else left. And after that, I realized that I can work with passion, but it's business every day. And this was one part why I sold my part of Marshall at a certain time as well. Even if I architected the deal that Sound Industries bought Marshall and I created $900 million in 24 months, it's a different story. But everything is not about money. It's important that you also work for a better future that we all can be proud to give to our children and the next generations.
That's a fantastic way to think, Marshall. And the reason why I was asking you that question is because one really needs to give their everything to be able to build something of value. On that note, thank you very much for sharing your insights on how you're building these very diverse set of businesses with sustainability at the core. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Conrad,
thank you so much.
Pleasure having you here. Fantastic conversation with Conrad, who's into the business of building e-boats that are silent boats. He's also built several other businesses, like I was mentioning, Urban Ears, which is an electronics company, Marshall as well, which you must be very familiar with. It's time to move on to our next session. But before that, let me make an announcement here that you can scan the QR codes right in front of the screens. In fact, you can scan this QR code to access all the pictures from this main hall. The images will be at your fingertips. In fact, that's thanks to our AI photo partner, Filter Pixel. You can share them on your social media using the hashtag ScriptingATomorrow and hashtag GBS2025. All right then, it's time to move on to the next session of the day, and we're going to be focusing on entertainment. Well, the entertainment industry is witnessing a digital and AI-driven revolution. How do content creators and businesses maintain authenticity in this landscape that's ever-changing? Well, to discuss that and more, I'm now joined by William King Vilonis, comedian and AI storyteller. He's a digital architect as well, a futurist, a cultural innovator, and a Hollywood filmmaker. And joining him will be Gina Dirawi, Swedish television presenter, singer, songwriter. She's also an author, comedian, radio personality, and an actress. And Also, as part of the panel is Stefano Falaha, the CEO of Podio UAE. That session will be moderated by our very own Vikram Oza, who's a consulting editor at ET Now. So let's give them a huge round of applause, Vikram.
To it all morning, and it's happening right now. It's so good to have three entertainers, two in the traditional sense of entertainment, and one who is an enabler. But all three of them are in India for the first time, and we're talking about culture, the business of entertainment in a global paradox. And paradox it is, because we're kind of in an environment where all this globalization talk is about the world becoming one, right? At one level, we're talking about the world becoming one, but we seem to be drawn to our own, to our kind of people, to our kind of content, to the things that we like, and we are constantly looking for validation for who we are. That identification, that representation is an important piece. So much content getting created. But what is it that the algorithm is choosing for us based on the choices that we are making? It's the kind that we identify with in a broader sense. Visionaries, he went viral. And this happened about a decade ago. And it was a song that was called BBL Drizzy.
Yes.
I'm not sure how many people in this audience, do you know about BBL Drizzy? Yes?
How do you know?
Well, I see one hand. But not too many of us knew.
Yeah.
And yet it's a song that has gone so viral that has made you a star. Visionaries, I know how easy it is for you to spin a song. And while we were just sitting and chatting, he was able to spin a song for us. You want to play that for us?
Yeah. Here we go.
We were just chatting. We were just he was chatting with me. And on the phone, he wrote the lyrics. And he had 3 versions of the song. Are you able to find it?
Yep, here we go. I was trying to make another one with some global business summit lyrics, but you guys can hear this.
The second version.
Yeah, so it took about 30 seconds to make using AI, and yeah, I was able to make that song in the backstage.
I'm fascinated by how simple this entire process is. To create content is easy. Now, getting people to consume it, is that the tough part? What did it take to make BBL Drizzy the viral song that it became? Visionaries first.
Yeah, so, well, BBL Drizzy happened, for those that don't know, it's a song that was inspired by Drake, the famous Canadian rapper. He got into a beef with another rapper. The rapper said that Drake had fake abs, and he started calling him BBL Drizzy. And then, so I took that, used AI, made a song about it, and it went like super viral. So the process is pretty simple, just writing the lyrics and then using prompts to create the song.
So that's fascinating. I mean, it can be as easy as that to go viral, and sometimes you really don't know what it's going to take to make so many people watch and appreciate it and share it. But Gina, you've been out there. Sweden, you are a big star, I understand. You're a TV presenter, you do comedy, you do all kinds of things as an entertainer. But tell me what it takes to widen your audience base. Because we know you only through what I've been told, that you're a huge Swedish star. Yeah. Everyone in Sweden knows you.
Yeah. So how you broaden your like the people who know you?
How do you widen that audience? Or do you even want to?
I've never thought about it in that way. For me, it has always go down to what do I want to create and what story do I want to tell. And it doesn't matter if I'm in music or in, like I've released a book, I'm writing my second book right now. It's always about, and you talked about this in the beginning, because I never felt represented as a kid. And I
Why
think,
not?
Because I was a Palestinian girl who grew up in Sweden, in the north of Sweden, there wasn't a lot of representation or people that looked like me in the industry or in the media in general. And I remember my dad telling me that, I said that I wanted to be in the entertainment industry. And he said, yeah, but Gina, you're Palestinian. People like you, you know, they will never let you be there. And I was like, why not? Why can't someone like me be on the magazines or on TV or make music and create art? And I think that for me, it was always about how can I create a space where I'm able to exist in the world.
Wow.
And that is very, very powerful. And I think a lot of people today, there's so much focus on going viral, and I think that is one thing. But if you are truly an artist or you're creating from another space of wanting to exist, that is it comes from another part. It's almost, it's a spiritual thing, I think.
So that's a primal need.
Yeah, for me, that is the prime thing. Like, how can I create stuff that I feel is aligned with who I am and how I want to be in the world? Because I want to be a full human being. How can I create the space where that is allowed?
Stefano, you're in the business of giving people like her a voice. People who feel underrepresented, unrepresented. You have a platform for podcasts. And this is essentially for the MENA region. It's still restricted because there is a certain cultural similarity in the Middle East, North African region. Is that something that you were gunning for? Because it's still creating a niche of a kind.
Great question. To be honest, I think it's shifting aligned with how the media landscape is going and where we're heading as consumers, right? We're more and more in the need of authentic, real, raw, and genuine narratives. And this goes hand in hand with the ability of people like Gina to share their stories and build their own communities of their sort. And we've seen that. We've seen the power of podcasting. We've seen the power of how it has the ability to influence an election. We've seen the power of how it has the ability to get and amplify the voices to as many channels as possible and enable repressed stories, enable underrepresented communities to feel connected. And in a way, if you look at it, it's sort of a bridge, right? It's a cultural bridge that is merging these communities across global audiences with their cultural norms and with stories that they resonate from. And so going back maybe to your initial question, is it restrictive? I think more than ever, even governments are realizing that if they don't enable communities and if they don't enable the creation of specific stories and if they don't allow that within we operated in one of the most difficult countries and one of the most difficult and censored markets globally. But that has shifted. Governments are working hand in hand with creators to allow them to shed light on their stories. And that for as long as we can remember, that wasn't the case. Because I think they realize that if they don't do that, the world is heading there regardless, and they need to be forward thinkers with the world and with where the landscape is heading.
Is that really happening according to Visionaries? Because a lot of people will say that in America, a lot of people are very insular in that sense because it's such a large country. They are caught up in everything that is around them, and that pretty much can be said about many people around different parts of the world because the hyper-local cultures are that much more prominent. To break away from that and say, let me introduce you to something that you haven't heard, haven't seen. Sometimes you don't have the bandwidth for it. Can it really happen where you're talking about the world is one? Is that something that we are even gunning for? Like Stefano is saying, it's what governments want and they see the world going towards. But is the world really going towards it?
I would like to think so, but I think it's definitely important for us to just be taking in new experiences and try to, as much as we can, have empathy for everybody and their experiences throughout the world, throughout our communities. But I would just hope that we were saying backstage, I'm a glass half full type of dude. So, life is definitely full. It's yin and yang. So there's going to be good and bad. You can't really have, one without the other. But yeah, I definitely, I think that amidst all the things that are happening in the world, I think that we're going to see like positive things come out of it.
So you're seeing good people creating good content. Do
Yeah,
you agree?
yeah.
Is that really happening? Because you'll have all kinds of actors out there.
Yeah.
You may be well-meaning, and your reality is your reality, and you want to put it out there. Someone else might think that's not good reality, and that's not my version of it, and doesn't even want to be exposed to it.
Yeah.
Should they be?
This is human life. This is the human experience. You have to be able to hear other people's stories, other people's perspectives that you don't agree with. This is life. There's billions of people living on the planet, and to think that we're going to go out into the world and meet people who everyone thinks like us, acts like us, no, it's not going to be like that. And sometimes it's going to be like really hard things that you hear from other people, or racist things, or blah, blah, blah. All of that exists, but I always think that, as we said, we talked about it before, I think when you come from a narrative or from a place that like one main narrative maybe has been pushed, so a lot of people have felt that they didn't have a voice for so long.
Yes.
I think now we're on the other extreme part, that everyone wants the voice and say who, how they feel and what they are.
The opposite end of the
spectrum. Yeah,
spectrum.
but I think hopefully it's going to land somewhere else, but we also need to give people time. We're coming from one place, we're moving to another place. Like, you have to also, give human beings time to adapt a bit, I think.
So is it economically viable to give a large people a voice? You're in the business of doing it, right, Stefano?
Correct. Economically viable, I would say yes. I think we have changed the fundamental way of how voices are shared, discovered, and monetized. And this trifecta is effectively what's driving the economic growth of new media, right? And I know that also the Times is into podcasting, and that is because this organization is very forward-thinking in where the head is and where this is heading. And so it is economically viable. If you compare that effectively to any other medium, advertising on podcasts can affect an election, and so why can it affect the fact that the brand has something to convert and their communities to convert? And I also second what Gina said. It's important to give a full 360 view of what happens.
Right.
The discernment is no longer happening at the source, it's happening on the audience level. And this, like you said, is probably on the extreme side of things, but then eventually it will balance out. And eventually, like any other industry, we find the balance, and this will come.
But, Vilonius, about the traditional ways of creativity, now many will argue that technology is kind of queering the pitch, as it were, because it's becoming so easy to generate a song of this kind and for it to become viral. So the traditionalists are going to challenge this model of yours, and there are people here in India as well generating this kind of content. So that debate, how do we find direction to?
Man, I just feel that people have to adapt. I think that traditional people that like to make art a certain way, that'll still exist. It's I liken it with a handcrafted shoe. There's some people that's just I just want that because I know somebody took their time and did it that way. But with these tools now, anybody can become an artist. You know what I'm saying? I know there's tons of people that have poetry books and they love to write, and they was I just want to hear my music sung, and I don't have the money to go to a studio or pay thousands of dollars, but with these tools I can make a Motown song. I can make these books that my grandmother left me. I can turn that into music, beautiful music. So for me, I feel very empowered with these tools, but I know there's going to be pushback because some people they don't want to let go of the way things used to be.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but for people like you who are using tools that are out there with AI, you're going to have that much more as it develops further. For such people, and of course there are people like Gina who are looking for a voice, and they have that possibility. Economically, it's becoming that much easier on the pocket to be able to create that and put it out there. But
to get audiences for that. Now, there is an investment to be made to kind of get audiences. Tell us about that bit. How does it actually work, both for the creator, though it's, of course, economically less demanding on the pocket, but still, whether it's the creator or it's you who's offering the platform on, tell me how it actually works, because we had that syndication model, but now that is going out of the picture.
Definitely. No, to second as well, it's really important, and we noticed the power shift and how that happened. You no longer need very expensive production to have a story and to have a voice. Obviously, this comes on a curation and really high quality content, which a lot still appreciate and will continue to appreciate with AI coming up with, generative content. And so that part of the tools has been solved. And then the second part is discoverability, which is still something that everyone is striving to do. And anyone wants reach, anyone wants to distribute. And we've made it possible, we've made it happen by using the syndication model, but applying it across different audiences. So wherever consumers are and wherever people can listen to podcasts, we're going to make that happen. So I'll give you an example of what we did in the Middle East. We plugged in with every single taxi in the UAE. So effectively, creators have a podcast, they upload it or use our platform to create and do the editing. In one click, it reaches all streaming apps, so Apple, Spotify, YouTube, any podcasting app. In addition to that, they also get the chance to distribute their content in taxis. And so within a taxi, there's an OEM. You click on that, you listen to the podcast that has been distributed there. Same for airlines, same for radios, same for gaming apps, same for third-party apps. And so we use the power of audio and the fact that audio can be consumed on the go passively, not necessarily actively, to be able to shed light on the stories and amplify as much as possible the content that's being created. Discoverability is key. And if you go back at the fundamentals of the content industry, content is king, but distribution is also king. And so it's a mix and match between both. You can have great premium content, but without distribution and without the reach that it creates, and without your ability to actually foster communities across all these channels, because these communities create other communities through network effects and through all the different feedback loops. And so all of that comes together to create a full ecosystem. And if you also lack the part of monetization, that also fragments part of the value chain. And so they all go hand in hand, which is the trifecta I referred to in the beginning.
So Gina, because you've worked on so many different media and you've worked in traditional media as well, when you are looking at amplifying your voice, which medium comes most handy at one level, which you find giving you the biggest reach, where you get that much more feedback, where there is that much more interaction?
Honestly, the biggest reach, I mean, traditional TV, but you don't get the same artistic freedom. So I moved into music and books, but my biggest reach was really, I think, YouTube created the biggest community for me. I was one of the first YouTubers in Sweden, and that created such a huge community for me. And then when I moved into traditional TV, it was a different type of community, but you don't have that artistic freedom. But there's different things, and I think there's a difference between being a content creator or just creating for reach and actually being an artist and creating art. Two totally different things. When you create art, you don't think about the reach, you don't think about money, you don't think about the economics of anything. You think, what story is it that I want to tell? What do I want to create? And then that will give you a pull, because you connect to people's hearts.
But aren't you making a conscious choice when you're choosing the medium on which you want to put out your content?
I am, but that's why I'm working. You said before, you do so many things. Yeah, because I know that different parts of me, I need to put them on different places. When I want to make
So how do you choose what goes where?
I mean, for me, if I want to make mystical film music, yeah, I go into music. I go by intuition, to be honest.
Intuition.
I always go by intuition.
Vilonius, would you agree that's all about intuition? Or is there a logical kind of decision made on the basis of reality? I know that this video did so well, or this song did so well on this particular platform, and it got me that much reach. You need to be truthful about this.
Yeah, there's definitely like an art and science to it, but to Gina's point, like I just looked at myself as an artist that was making art. I just so happened to go like viral and made money from it. But, you know, you do it for the art of it, you know, and like, but every platform has a specific way that you want to create content. Like if you're making content for TikTok, it's way different than the content you make for YouTube or even Instagram, you know, even though, you know, they seem very similar. So like understanding how these platforms work, how people like to engage with you on the platform is, I think, very critical in making sure that your content reaches a lot of people. Yeah.
That's always the big idea, Stefano. And I want you to wrap it up by telling us whether these communities that we are creating, and there are quite a few out there now on social media, it's all about creation of communities, but communities are also about identifying with a certain thought, concept, theory, and that's pulling people together. So are we replacing traditional communities with social media communities and not really creating the world as one? What do you think?
I think they're effectively reinforcing themselves. And to everyone's point, our role and our mission is to make sure that creators only focus on the content and getting the best stories possible out there. And we will make sure that this is being reached and this is being monetized as much as possible. And this is reaching their communities. And so back to your point, they are feeding into each other. I think there are some blurred lines, definitely, but at the end of the day, they're network effects. And the more you relate to a specific topic offline, the more you will be part of an online community and vice versa.
So among the biggest trends, and just to kind of give us a little deeper understanding of what works and what doesn't, because that's always the question when it comes to content.
Be authentic.
Authentic. And we hear a lot of that. We hear it so much that we've forgotten what it means. What does it mean to be authentic, Gina?
Dig deep in yourself and dig deep and see, what story do I want to tell? What is important to me? What do I love? What am I naturally drawn to? And I think that's with people. Go inside. Don't look outside. Go inside.
Well,
that's yeah, really, do it.
It sounds fascinating. And that's exactly what Belonius was telling me offline as well. But we've had an instance where a popular YouTuber, he's got into trouble because perhaps, and you could argue, that he went outside his accepted kind of image in the mind of his audience. And he was on a stand-up comedy show, where he believes that he was making an error of judgment, but people thought he really crossed the line. Does that happen a lot, Stefano?
To be honest, we haven't seen that happen in the region because people have linked their voice with their identity, and in a way, it's also an art more than a science, right? There's no real answer to it. It's more of learning from what the community wants and really being adaptive to the trends. We've seen stories come out, and we've seen a lot of different communities being shaped around these stories. So there is no right answer.
Yes.
There is no right and wrong. It's all about adapting to this new medium because everyone is adapting. New media is adapting, traditional media is adapting, and everyone's shaping that new form in a way or another. And so I think the healthy communities coming and opposing each other is a healthy trend that we're seeing that is going to help where the media landscape is heading to.
So these are the conversations we want to see a lot more of, and perhaps this is the kind of scenario that we live in where more and more of these interactions and open interactions are happening. At one level, Gina says that you need to kind of be authentic, be yourself, but sometimes you are in the business of traction. You want to be able to put your voice out there because you're seeking that much more for yourself in terms of fame or whatever else. And there's nothing wrong with that either. It's just that technology is making that possible.
And I think it's different things. If you are a seeker of attention, then you can look at it and you can make a plan on how to reach attention. But if you want to actually make an impact and reach, and you do that not by being strategical, you reach people's hearts. And that is something you can't buy, you can't plan, either you have it or you don't. I'm sorry.
That's fascinating. Thank you. This has been a most fascinating discussion. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but we'd love to carry on these conversations, and they will be available outside as well. Do interact, do keep these conversations going, because that's what the idea is, isn't it? Wherever, whatever platform, and this is a great platform to have it on. Thank you to all three of you. Thank you for joining us.
much, Vikram, for moderating that very exciting panel. And Gina, one request from our audiences. You said and you suggested that artists should always remain authentic and should do what's closest to their hearts. And if I may put forth a request that's coming from one of our attendees, if you could sing a line or two that's close to your heart, that would be the perfect close to the summit.
Can you hear me? Oh, this is horrible.
A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Gina.
انت روحي يا حبيبي انت قلبي يا نصيبي يا نصيبي. Thank you. This is horrible.
Thank you very much, Gina. It's indeed a pleasure having the entire panel talk about AI and the kind of changes that it's going to bring to the entertainment industry. Ladies and gentlemen, while there may be a technology push, however, the power of creativity will always remain in the hands of humans, and of course the power of intuition as well. And if I may repeat once again, you can scan the QR code that's displayed on the screen to instantly access pictures of the Darbar Hall, and within seconds, these images will be at your fingertips. Thanks to our AI photo partner, Filter Pixel, you can also share them on your social media platforms, including hashtag #ScriptingATomorrow and hashtag GBS2025. What an extraordinary day it's been, from technology to trade, climate action to digital finance and leadership to entertainment. Today's sessions, ladies and gentlemen, have been packed with powerful insights and groundbreaking ideas. With that, we come to the close of this conference. So a huge thank you to all our esteemed speakers, panelists, moderators, and to you, your audience, incredible audiences. So let me take this opportunity to once again thank some of our esteemed partners. The event is co-powered by Google, Bennett University, the Times Group, celebration partners, teachers, packaged drinking water, smart logistics partner, FedEx, India innovation partner, Process, commercial and investment bank partner, JP Morgan, energy partner, Inox GFL Group, technology AI partner, New Dream Group, ESG partner, SR Group, luxury partner, Mercedes-Benz, sustainable construction partner, Booties, industry partner, Transworld, and of course, there's a whole list of our associate partners, Ace Insurance Brokers, Nisus Finance, Accenture, NV Group, Luminous, Ravfin Infra Project, National Stock Exchange, Octagon International, WeWork India, Quick Smartwash, Radio Mirchi and Ghana, and of course, our official outdoor media partner, Times OOH. So as we close, the Times Group presents ET Now Global Business Summit 2025. We leave you with one thought. The future belongs to those who dare to evolve, innovate, and lead. That's also the key theme of Global Business Summit 2025. And you can access your personal pictures by scanning the QR code displayed in the pre-function area. You just have to simply follow these steps, and your images will be ready within seconds. You can share them on your social media using the hashtags, like I said, #ScriptingATomorrow and hashtag GBS2025. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an incredible privilege to host this summit. Hope you liked the show as much as we did putting it together for you. From me and the entire Times Group, thank you very much for tuning in and for being with us here.
People are excited about what AI will do for them. We're excited about what AI will do for business. Meet the Dreamer X Assistance AI, designed to multiply output by automating tasks.
भारत ने अपने साथ ही पूरी दुनिया की इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ को मजबूती दी।
Global Business Summit, Scripting a Tomorrow.